Hello, good afternoon, Las Vegas. Hagata Nuni Nian, Fawn Douglas, Nick Nwuvi. Hello, everyone. My name is Fawn Douglas. I'm from the Southern Paiute Tribe. I'm an enrolled member of the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe, but I am not the voice of my tribe. Our elected officials are for the tribal councils. So today I'm here to speak on behalf of the lands and things that are really important to Native peoples, not only here in Southern Nevada, but also Northern Nevada. And I think it's really important that our candidates are aware of this. It is not enough to say that I stand with Native people. It is not enough to say that I stand for Indigenous issues. I want to hear the words out of their mouth. That I want to hear them say that I stand with the Desert National Wildlife Refuge. I will not let the military take 300,000 acres away from protected landscape. I will not let the military take this land away, this Paiute ancestral land, Shoshone land, away for these red flag exercises. These exercises which are basically bombing the bighorn sheep, which are bombing our ancestral lands. I want to hear from our candidates that they will not let the military take this acreage out of what is supposed to be protected land. And that they also stand with not only Native people, but all Nevadans in saying that we will not allow any nuclear waste into Yucca Mountain, into our states, passing through our lands. And what is happening in Northern Nevada? I also want to hear our candidates saying that they will stand with the Northern Paiute people, our Yerington Paiute people, in cleaning up the Anaconda mine. And we must hold these leaders accountable. We must hear them say these words and demand more, and that they respect sovereignty, that they respect the government-to-government relationship in speaking with our tribal leaders. It is not enough to be in a forum with many of us here, but they need to go directly to the tribal offices and speaking to our elected officials. And with this, I welcome you, and I welcome you to this important forum, the People's Forum, to hear from a wonderful panel of many people from Southern Nevada and Northern to speak about these issues, not only issues that are important to Indigenous people, but issues that are important to all of us. So with that, I thank you.
Yay, even better that the mic is working. All right, these lights are super bright, but we're going to get through this because we are here at the People's Forum. Who's excited? My name is Laura Martin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada and Plan Action. I am also a board member of People's Action, where I chair the 2020 Strategy Committee. This year, Plan is celebrating 25 years promoting fairness and justice in the Silver State, and we are so excited to host the People's Presidential Forum here in Las Vegas, in East Las Vegas, with our sister organization, People's Action. I am so blessed to be the director of an organization that has a strong legacy of developing leaders, organizing with communities that are directly impacted, and demanding real, transformative change that supports the quality of life for all Nevadans, not just the wealthy or well-connected few. So I have a question for you all. Who is going to caucus for the first time in February 2020? So who has caucused before? Yes. So why do we do this? Why host a presidential forum? We know that this election takes up a lot of energy. It takes up a lot of space. But we want to harness that energy and refocus it back to the people and the issues we care about. Too often, Candidates and political parties think they can tell us what to care about, that they can tell us what we're voting for in the election. But that ain't right. But we want to flip that script. We are organizing candidates and their campaigns and telling them what we need for our communities. We're telling them what we need to even elect them. So here at the People's Forum, we're going to hear from community leaders who will talk to Julian Castro, Andrew Yang, and Bernie Sanders via live stream. They will talk about mining, Puerto Rico, reproductive justice, and so much more. And this is something we felt we had to do to ensure that the people had a say in this election. Because when I watch the debates, I see multimillionaire news anchors asking questions that are little more than conservative talking points dressed up as a question. But our people, returning citizens, indigenous people, immigrants, students, the working poor and underpaid, planistas, we don't just deserve a seat at the table, we deserve a place on the stage. So we hope that you all enjoy the People's Forum. You're going to use hashtag #ThePeoplesForum and also follow People's Action and Plan Action and join a discussion with people across the country who are watching via live stream, who are in their living rooms and community centers, to hear from these candidates because they believe like we do, that the candidates must come to us. Yes, I got through that fast. So without further ado, our next speaker, give them some applause. They're going to introduce our next guest. It is Rudy and Juan from One America.
Hola, mi nombre es Juan Monge y soy un líder de base de One America en el estado de Washington State. Y es un honor presentarle en este lugar a la congresista Pramila Jayapal. Ella es una defensora de inmigrante y refugiado, valiente, que siempre ha defendido a nuestras comunidades. La congresista Jayapal fundó One America inmediatamente después del 11 de septiembre del 2001 para abordar la reacción violenta, los crímenes de odio y la discriminación contra las comunidades inmigrantes de color, principalmente musulmán. A través de su liderazgo, One America se ha convertido en la organización de defensa de inmigrantes y refugiados más grande del estado de Washington, construyendo un movimiento de base liderado por inmigrantes de color. Por favor, ayúdenme a dar la bienvenida a la congresista Pramila Jayapal, del Distrito 7 de Washington.
Thank you. My name is Rudy Cureño, and I am from Seattle, Washington, same as a leader of the grassroots and One America in Washington State. And it's an honor to me to introduce the Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She is fearless and powerful immigrant and refugee advocate who has always stood by defending our communities. Congresswoman Jayapal found One America after September 11, 2001, to address the backlash, hate crimes, and discrimination against immigrant communities of color, Muslims. Through her leadership, One America has grown to be the largest immigrant community and refugee in Washington State. She has built broad-based movements led by immigrants of color. Please help welcome our Congresswoman, the leader of the immigrant movement in the Congress, and our friend, Pramila Jayapal.
We so appreciate it, and let me say hello, Nevada. I am so proud to be here, and I want to start by saying thank you to Laura Martin, the awesome executive director, woman of color, who is leading Plan. We are so happy, Laura, to be with you and to see your leadership, and I also want to thank People's Action and all of you that are in the room on the front lines for justice. The advocacy and the movement building that you do every day and your bold, principled leadership at this very moment is so critically important, and I hope you know how important it is. Give yourselves a round of applause. You deserve it. So I come to you today as the first South Asian American woman ever elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, a proud immigrant and one of only 14 naturalized citizens in the United States Congress, the proud mother of a gender nonconforming child, and yes, as a community organizer. And it's a real honor for an organizer to speak to other organizers who are working to build our movement on the inside and the outside, and to co-govern from the places that we hold our power, so that our solutions are developed together and rooted in the deep experiences of working people, so that our country can once again be returned to the people. And we are at a critical moment in our history. You know, the White House and Fox News, they want to sow fear in each of us. They want to divide us because of the color of our skin, or because of where we come from, or because of the person we love, or because we might or might not pray to the same God or some God at all. They want to distract us from the reality of an unequal system that is rigged for the wealthiest amongst us and not for the working people. They want you to believe that a president is above the law and that he can abuse the power of the White House for his personal gain. Well, let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. The road to fascism is littered with moments when people did not speak out or did not speak up, and we are not going to let that be the case again this time. Is that right? But, you know, it's not going to be easy, right? This is not going to be an easy road. This road is going to be filled with struggles. It's going to be filled with challenges. Brittany Howard, who's the former lead singer of the group Alabama Shakes, says that we have, her new album is awesome. You should listen to it. But she says that we have these deep ruptures in our society that we need to heal. And that is true. Very true. We live in a country where the majority of people do not even have $1,000 in their bank account to take care of a leaking roof or a broken car or their kids when they're sick. They wake up in the middle of the night wondering how they are going to pay for those basic things that allow us to live with dignity. 70 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured, and tens of millions more cannot even afford to get the health care they need, even when they have insurance, because we have a system that puts profits over people. Black and brown kids predict their futures based on their zip codes. And there are too many young people who decide not to go on to get a higher education because they don't want to be saddled with mountains of debt. Our immigration system is broken, but instead of fixing it and legalizing 11 million undocumented immigrants who do the hard work of this country, instead of doing that, we criminalize them and we put them, 56,000 immigrants every day, into for-profit prisons. It ain't right. And in America today, the 3 richest people in the country, 2 of whom live in my state, have the same wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans. That's 160 million people have the same wealth as 3. That just ain't right. And here we are, less than 10 miles away from the site of the deadliest mass shooting committed by an individual in the history of our country. And the NRA and politicians who work for them have blocked all of our legislation to get guns off our streets. So yes, the ruptures in our communities are so great. But remember this, Donald Trump is both a symptom and a cause. He is both of those things. He exploited the economic insecurity that existed before he came into office. He exploited that insecurity of tens of millions of Americans to divide us so that he could build his own power and the power of white supremacists and the power of corporate supremacists. So make no mistake, we must get him out of the White House, and we will, and we are counting on you to do that. As Nevadans, you are going to cast very important early votes. And my deepest hope is that you use that opportunity to embrace a candidate who has a bold, progressive vision of the future and is willing to take on the powerful special interests that hold sway. Don't think that just beating Trump, though, is going to be enough. We have deep structural problems in this country. Institutionalized racism, institutionalized sexism, institutionalized classism. And we need bold solutions that match the scale of our crisis, or otherwise we may get Donald Trump out, but those same things that led to him being there will lead to somebody else like him. And that is why Plan and People's Action, it is so important that we elect leaders all the way to the top of the ticket who have courage and determination to lead our conversations on tough issues, not just to follow the polls, but to actually use these platforms to lead. And to do that, we need a bold, unified, progressive grassroots movement that is ready to push hard, organize hard, win, and yes, run for office ourselves. And I'll tell you, I never thought I was going to run for office. You know, you heard from Rudy and Juan. I spent 2 decades before coming to Congress organizing. I was out in the streets with you. I've been arrested 3 times for leading major civil disobedience protests, including once from within Congress when we were fighting against family separations, and I became the only member of Congress to get arrested with 600 women who were out there. And of course, founding and leading One America for 12 years, a proud member of People's Action, fighting for immigration reform, social justice, economic justice. We successfully sued the Bush administration and stopped the deportation of 4,000 Somalis across the country. We passed a state DREAM Act, we passed a state Voting Rights Act, we advocated for marriage equality, and we successfully made Seattle the first major city in the country to pass a $15 minimum wage. But after decades of organizing on the outside, what I realized is, hey, you know what, brothers and sisters, we need to be organizing on the inside also. We need more women, more folks of color, more low-income people, more working people, more organizers to bring the inside and the outside together, to co-govern and to develop the kinds of bold policies that we have been fighting for together. And so I ran for Congress in 2016, and I won the same year that Trump was elected. And as brutal as the last few years have been, it has been an honor and a privilege to bring the fighting voice of immigrants and working people to this Congress. And guess what? We sort of woke up after 2016, right? We woke up. We realized how essential our participation and our organizing and our movement is. And in 2018, because we built a powerful grassroots movement, because we ran bold progressive candidates who inspired people to come out and vote, because we knocked on tens of thousands of doors everywhere, giving up no place at all, we, the people, won. We took back the House. Democrats took back the House majority with the most progressive, most diverse House in the history of our country. Our first two Native American women, our first two Muslim American women, our first of African Americans, Latinx, LGBTQ. We have the most progressive House of Representatives in the history of the country. And now I get to serve as the elected co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, leading 100 members, that is 40% of the Democratic caucus, belong to the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We are leveraging our power. We are fighting for the kinds of bold progressive policies that we should have. It's why this movement is why we got the first ever hearings on my Medicare for All bill in the U.S. House of Representatives. And it's what got the passage of the $15 minimum wage bill in the House. It's what got the passage of the most progressive DREAM Act and TPS bill ever. It's what got us the passage of the Equality Act and so much more. So organizing matters. Organizing matters. Majorities matter. And we have to win again in 2020. And we need not just an opposition agenda. We have to oppose the things that are bad out there. We do. And we will, right? We will. But we need a proposition agenda, a bold vision that inspires and engages people to believe again in a democracy that is by, for, and of the people. A country that makes structural changes, the bold structural changes that make America work for working people. And so, are you ready? Are you ready to do what it takes to organize a country? Are you ready to do what it takes to invest in a transformational Green New Deal that moves us to 100% clean energy and invests in union jobs? Are you ready to get money out of politics and strengthen our unions and give workers a right to organize? Are you ready to take on white supremacy, corporate supremacy? Are you ready to end the oppression of young people by canceling student debt across the country? Are you ready to advance full equality of LGBTQ people? Folks with disabilities are most vulnerable. Are you ready? Are you ready to stand up for reproductive and gender justice? Are you ready, brothers and sisters, to fight for a country where people can thrive, not just survive? That is the country that I am fighting for, and we as organizers know that strength comes in times of crisis. So take strength from each other, brothers and sisters. Take strength from the unity and the love of our ever-growing, ever-powerful movement for justice, and use that strength to heal the ruptures that exist in our country. Because America, the one thing we know about America is it is a country that makes and remakes itself every single decade. We are the country that ended legalized slavery, that gave women the right to vote and sent a man to the moon. And together we can build a democracy that works for all of us. Thank you so much. Let's win, people.
This girl is on fire. Can you hear me now? Yes! All right, so we are ready, and we're just going to dive right in. So, buenas tardes, comunidad. My name is Raquel Cruz Juarez. And I am so honored to be here today. I have a little quick anecdote. This means a lot to me because almost 8 years ago, I started out as an intern at Plan and Plan Action. And 8 years later, I'm standing in front of you about to ask somebody that could possibly be running our country for the next 4 years, and that to me is impactful, and that's the kind of work that everybody in this room is doing, including Plan Action. Thank you. So I am an immigrant from Guatemala. I'm a Central American immigrant, proud of it. Yes. And I think not even in my parents' wildest dreams could they imagine that their little girl could stand before this crowd today and ask a presidential candidate important questions about the issues that are happening in our communities. I work for Planned Parenthood, and both reproductive justice, reproductive rights, health, and immigrant rights are important to me because I am a member of this community that doesn't lead a single issue live. And all of these issues are quite important to me. So I have the distinct honor of introducing the only Latino running for president. Julian Castro is a Texan politician who served as the mayor of his native San Antonio, Texas, from 2009 until he became the youngest member of President Obama's cabinet, serving as the 16th U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development from 2014 to 2017. So please, let's give a huge round of applause to Julian Castro. Secretary, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I think you might have to switch it on.
Can y'all hear?
Right there.
Is that better? All right. Buenas tardes. How are y'all doing? Thank you very much, Raquel, for having me.
If you want to go ahead and introduce
Sure,
yourself to the crowd.
let me just, if I can, take a couple of minutes to thank everybody who's here and Plan and People's Action, all of the folks who have helped make this event possible. It's great to be here on the east side. I'm from the west side of San Antonio, and it's good to be here on the east side of Las Vegas. Look, I'm here today because I know that across our country we have a lot of people who have big dreams, like my brother Joaquin and I did when we were growing up on the west side of San Antonio with my mother and my grandmother. We have big dreams in our families, but what we need is a nation where everyone counts. And that starts at the top, with a president who wants to be a president for everyone and who has a vision for the future of this country so that everybody can prosper. I feel tremendously blessed in my own life to have grown up with my mother and my grandmother, to have gone to the public schools of San Antonio, and then get to go to college and to law school with my twin brother Joaquin, because I can't get rid of him. And then to get to be the first in my family to be a professional as a lawyer, and to go into public service and serve my community as mayor of San Antonio, and then serve our country as Secretary of Housing under President Obama. I want to make sure that no matter who you are in this country, that you can have those same kind of opportunities to reach your own dreams. I want to make sure that in the years ahead, that as a nation, we afford opportunity and make sure that our country gets smarter and healthier and fairer for everybody and more prosperous. And that we treat people with compassion and with common sense instead of cruelty. And I look forward to a conversation about that kind of America in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Secretary, there's been a lot of forums across the country, but we want to welcome you to our living room here in Nevada. We really want to have genuine, honest conversations about the issues that are possibly have a national ripple effect, but what is happening here in Nevada? This forum is for Nevadans, by Nevadans, so we're very thankful that you're here today. So we'll dive right into our amazing leaders and storytellers. The first question is from Jovan, who is a Las Vegas native and has been impacted by the criminal justice system due to mental health. Since his release in 2018, he's been helping the mentally ill and homeless population while also being a student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Hello, everyone. I'm the mental health advocate for Mass Liberation. They work with Plan. They do amazing work in the community, work that I can't even explain. They're great people. I'm asking a question about mental health, Mr. Castro. According to PBS, nearly 20% of those incarcerated in the U.S. suffer from some type of mental illness. Through my 8 years of working in mental health field, along with my own personal experience coping with mental health issues, I believe that the federal government has failed to provide adequate mental health funding. Also, the mental health services that are available have an accessibility issue when a person must be deemed suicidal or homicidal for inpatient services. There are many people who do not meet these requirements but could still benefit from those services. I went to prison not because I was a bad person, but because I needed mental health services and interventions that were not available to me. I was able to stabilize my mental health during my incarceration, but jails and prisons shouldn't be the place where people seek mental health services, particularly inpatient mental health services. Mr. Castro, what are your thoughts around expanding mental health program funding to include more access to inpatient services? And overall, how do we keep our people out of cages, keep our community safe, and allow people to get the mental health care that they need without relying on incarceration as a form of stabilization?
Thank you very much, Jovan. If you don't mind, I'm going to address the audience. Yes, but thank you for the question. What I believe is that we need to end the distinction between mental health care and physical health care and provide mental health care just like we provide physical health care. Make sure that everybody can access it and that it's good care, quality care. It really is a shame that somebody is able to get more mental health care in the prison system in a lot of states, including in my home state of Texas oftentimes, than they can if they're just a regular person out there that's looking for good mental health care. That means that we need to invest in a serious way in mental health care for every single person in this country. My health care plan would do that. I believe that we should base our health care off of Medicare to strengthen Medicare and make sure that we take it to the next level, including improving mental health care. It also means that we need to do things like ensure no matter where you live that you can access good mental health care, because in a lot of rural communities in our country, hospitals have closed down their inpatient psychiatric care, and people have to drive farther and farther. Y'all might see this in Nevada and some places. I know we see this in Texas, in Iowa and other states that I've been in. They say that. It's getting harder and harder. It's hard for people living in cities, much less for folks that are living in rural areas, so I would improve that. In my education plan, I've called for community-based schools. In other words, schools that would provide access to health care, to job opportunities, job training, other opportunities for entire families. We want to build this community schools model across this country so that it's more than only your child's education that you can get there, but it's other things, including access to mental health care references and services. Let me just finally address very quickly the other part of your question, which is, we want to make sure that people never end up in the criminal justice system in the first place. A few days ago, I put out a plan that I call a first chance plan, because like others have said, we can talk about a second chance all we want, and my plan addresses what to do if somebody's incarcerated and they're getting out. But I would rather that our young people not end up in jail in the first place. I want to make sure that people get a first chance in life, and part of that is mental health care. It also means that we need to train our police officers and improve our police departments and our court system, because when we think about police abuse, for instance, a lot of that abuse is actually of people who have a mental health issue, and the police officer is not used to dealing with that, and so they resort to violence when they don't have to. We need to do that. We need to eliminate the stigma that comes with mental illness and invest in everything from educational opportunity to housing opportunity to criminal justice reform that I lay out in my plan, and I hope folks will check out, to ensure that people have a first chance in life, that they stay out of our criminal justice system, and that those who do end up in it have access to educational opportunity in a way to get on a better path, the right path in life, and those who are getting out have an effective second chance. We ban the box. We don't put a big X on their record that says you're never going to get a good job, or you can't get good housing, you can't get back up on your feet. We want to end recidivism in this country and truly ensure that people can get on a good path in life.
Thank you for that. So moving right along, we have a question from Mili Lozada. Millie is a proud Puerto Rican leader in Las Vegas. She arrived here after Hurricane Maria destroyed the island, and after going through many struggles herself, she decided to fight for a better life for both herself and her partner, Maria Isabel.
Hello, my name is Milagros. I am a survivor of Hurricane Maria. In 2017, before the hurricane hit, we already knew it would be a Category 5, the worst level a hurricane could get. I immediately knew this would destroy our island, our home. I had so much anxiety because I didn't know what was going to happen to us. The rain picked up and the wind began to shatter our windows. There was a small river behind our home, and when the dam broke, our home started to flood, and that was very scary. After the hurricane hit, we were left without food, clean water, or any power. Our home was ruined. The phone lines were torn down, which meant we could not get a hold of our loved ones. I remember having to wash our clothes in the river, and that caused me to break out in rashes. Luckily, our community came together to support one another through this tragedy. Whoever had access to communication outside Puerto Rico would help the rest of us and let our families know we were alive. Neighbors began to share their food and what they had been harvesting to help feed one another. Some days we spent hours in line just waiting for a turn to find a semi-clean spot in the river to get water, sometimes to drink out of it. Unfortunately, we still suffer through hunger. We ran out of water, and it took us 5 days to get in touch with my children in the U.S. People were dying, and our government did nothing about it, nothing. When I was finally able to get a hold of my son living in Las Vegas, I asked him to help me and my partner, Marisabel, to come to Nevada. Of course he said yes, but my heart was still broken because I knew I didn't want to leave my home. Puerto Rico is my home. When I arrived at the airport, I felt privileged. I met people that were buying a flight they could afford to just to get them to safety. Many of them not knowing anyone in the places they would end up at. All that mattered to those families were getting to safety, somewhere safe. As a U.S. citizen, it is shameful to know that there was no help for us, that it never arrived, and when it did arrive, it was too late for some people like us. Now, Marisabel and I are living here and trying to rebuild our lives after the hurricane. In Las Vegas, I found a community with Make the Road Nevada. I love these people. I shared how hard it was for me to rebuild my life again. I wasn't able to get a driver's license because a law didn't allow me to transfer my Puerto Rican license to a Nevada one. But we fought to change that. And this year, won at the state legislature, we passed Senate Bill 396, which now allows Boricuas and people from the U.S. territories to obtain their driver's license in the state. Amen to that. Oh, Secretary Castro, it's a pleasure to meet you. That's not in here. Well, my partner and I fled our home in order to survive, but we both still dream of going back to our home. My question to you is, how will you ensure Puerto Ricans are able to rebuild their lives back home, and are you prepared to give Puerto Rico a full statehood?
Thank you very much for the question. My first campaign visit after I announced my candidacy on January 12th was not to Iowa or to New Hampshire. It was to San Juan, Puerto Rico, to tell the people of the island that we're thinking about them and that if I'm elected president, that everyone will count. So to answer your question, I believe that Number one, we need to make sure that those disaster relief funds flow to Puerto Rico, that the Trump administration stops playing games with those dollars to help rebuild the island immediately. Secondly, we need to invest more because the Trump administration and Trump himself have terribly failed the island. It's also true that the island has had needs for a while that were not being met, that we need to make sure that we meet. Infrastructure, the electrical grid, the schools, healthcare, the quality of healthcare there, the access. Right? We have a lot that we need to do with Puerto Rico, and I support investing dollars on the island to make sure that people are able to have a better quality of life. I also believe that the people of Puerto Rico should have the opportunity to determine whether they want to become part of the United States. I would immediately support, if I were president, a binding referendum to that effect. I know that there have been elections in the past, and there are those who argue that we should go on those previous elections. I also know that there's contention as to those elections. And so if I'm president, I would work with Congress and the people of Puerto Rico to set a definitive binding referendum that would determine statehood for the island. The last thing I'll say on this, just very briefly, is that if that ever does happen, I also want to make sure that Puerto Rico maintains its beautiful culture and its sense of identity. It's very unique, a unique place, a special place, with the Spanish language, with the heritage there. And I want to make sure that no matter what happens, that it's able to maintain that in the years to come.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ariana, who is currently a senior in high school. Ariana believes that we can take part in inspiring a movement to better the planet, and it all starts with one individual or one community at a time.
Hello. Okay, this is on. So, I'm Ariana. Unlike many stories or other people, this isn't a single moment, rather the progression of seemingly insignificant events throughout the 18 years of my life. And my journey begins 12 years ago when I was in kindergarten. My first book I read was about the Earth, and to a little 6-year-old girl as I was, the Earth was the most precious thing I could ever think of, something I wanted to preserve and protect for forever. And then in 7th grade, when I was 12 years old, my passion for the environment and the Earth grew stronger when I learned about the carbon emissions and implication it has on our environment. And in high school, when I was 17, so last year, when AP Biology dove me deeper in that passion that I have for my environment. And my mind was once again captivated by the beauty of Earth, yet I recognize that the current environmental situation is far from beautiful. I've garnered a greater concern and fear for the future of our Earth, which affects not only my loved ones or my peers, but the billions of people worldwide. We simply cannot disregard this growing issue at hand, and I believe that we've been playing a children's game of hot potato with the Earth as we've simply been passing down the problem generation to generation, and it has landed on the youth. It's time to end the empty rhetoric and blank excuses, and it's time to tackle and fix the climate crisis. So, Mr. Castro. So, Mr. Castro, addressing the climate crisis cannot be solved in one term or even two. So, what steps will you take to cement permanent reform regarding the climate crisis to ensure prosperity and success, not only for my generation, but many generations down the line?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ariana, for the question and for your advocacy. So this is the call of our generation to combat the biggest threat to our future prosperity and the prosperity of the world. There are a lot of things that I would do. I put out a climate action plan a few weeks ago that says that immediately on day one of my administration that I would rejoin the Paris Climate Accord so that we lead again on sustainability. But that's the easy part. That's the easy part. We would go beyond that. My plan sets a goal of getting to net zero carbon emissions in the United States by 2045 and leading the world to get there by at latest 2050. And it does that in different ways. It sets a clean transportation standard that, for instance, says we're going to have light and medium duty vehicles be zero carbon emissions by 2030. It sets a clean energy standard that says we're going to have zero emissions, renewable energy, clean energy by 2035 in our country. It also imposes a carbon pollution fee so that we can go after the biggest polluters and have them help fix the problem that they're creating. So my plan, I hope folks will check it out. We do a lot to make sure that we get to net zero by 2045 at the latest. I also see this, though, not only as a crisis, but as a tremendous opportunity. Jobs are being created in the clean energy economy right now in Nevada, in Texas, in Iowa, all over the place. I want to unleash millions of new jobs in a clean energy economy. Two of the fastest growing jobs right now are solar panel installer, right, and wind turbine technician. We want to increase that and make sure that they're good, decent paying jobs so people can get to work and provide for their families, and that we see this transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. That's the kind of plan that we need to make sure that we combat the climate crisis and put people to work, and that's what I'll do as president.
Thank you, and thank you, Ariana, for your bravery as a high school student. Our next question is from Frankie. Frankie is the LGBTQ and Gender Program Assistant at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Go Rebels. And he's an Air Force veteran, and a McNair Scholar, and an advocate for trans people of color.
There, can y'all hear me? There you go. Okay. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Frankie Perez. My pronouns are he, him, his. So I served in the Air Force for 10 years, and I got out just to handle some personal things. And one of the things that I had to take care of was finishing my BA, which is almost there. We're almost there, y'all. And then the plan was to go to officer training school. But now that's no longer an option due to the trans-military ban. So also, the Supreme Court just recently started hearing LGBTQ discrimination in the workplace on October 8th. So I want to know, what will you do as president to ensure on committing to appointing justices to the Supreme Court that will not only, support the wealthy and corporations, but for all people, and so that I have the right to serve once again, and other trans folks whose dreams were shattered on that day, and also LGBTQ folks that are just trying to work and thrive in this country.
Yes, thank you very much, Frankie. Thank you for the question, but more importantly, thank you for your service as well. So when I was mayor of San Antonio, we did a groundbreaking non-discrimination ordinance in San Antonio that included the entirety of the LGBTQ community. When I was HUD secretary, one of the things that we did was that we expanded what was known as the equal access rule to the transgender community, to make sure that if you're transgender and, for instance, you show up at a publicly funded shelter, that they have to accommodate you according to your preference, according to how you're comfortable. This is one of the rules that the Trump administration rolled back. So they're going backward. They're going backward with the transgender military ban. I would go forward and undo what they've done so that no matter who you are, if you're willing to serve, you can serve, because bravery does not know the limit of one's sexual orientation or gender identity. Just as importantly, though, I would support the Equality Act, which is legislation in Congress that would outlaw discrimination against the LGBTQ community in housing, in employment, in any other way. We're not going to have second-class citizens in this country. In every single way, we want to make sure that no matter who you are, that you can't be discriminated against. And look, I recognize that some people say, well, this is part of my faith, or this is what I believe. And, I'm Catholic, and I respect people's faith. But when it starts to discriminate against somebody and to hurt them, we need to protect individuals and individuals' ability to exercise their own rights and to live freely in this country. So those are the kinds of things that I would fight for, as well as appointing justices to the Supreme Court that recognize the LGBTQ community as a protected class, in legal parlance, and are going to make sure that when they decide these kinds of cases, that they protect the LGBTQ community. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. And our last, but certainly not least, question is from Hope. Hope is a 19-year-old Washoe Paiute youth enrolled member of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. Yes. and is currently a cadet in training for the Reno Sparks Indian Colony Tribal Police Department.
Thank you for being here. Since I'm Native American, the land and the water mean a lot to our people. And there's a mining act, it's the 1872 Mining Act, that says miners are allowed to go onto federal land to mine. And 84.9% of Nevada is federal land. And in Yerington, there is a mine called the Anaconda Mine, and it's been there for years and years, and it just contaminates the ground and the water. And there's a reservation close to that mine, and they've been there for before the mine even opened. And their water is contaminated. They can't drink from the water, but they still bathe in it, and they cook with it, and they water their plants with it. And our sacred sites also have food that we would use as staples that we still gather today, and they're getting contaminated. So once we eat that, the food that we eat are contaminated. And our elders say that our sacred sites are important to us, and they've taught us, and we're trying to keep our traditions going for the future generations. So my question is, how will you protect our sacred ancestral lands?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hope, for the question. I believe in tribal sovereignty and in respecting our treaty obligations. And, there are two things that I know. Number one, I know that we have so many tribal communities out there that have a wonderful culture and history and a faith of their own. And also that we have a very painful history in the United States of how we've treated our tribes. I want to make sure that we can do whatever is possible to restore a respect and a working relationship, an understanding. When I was HUD Secretary, I enjoyed getting to work with tribal communities, both land-based and non-land-based, throughout the country. And I would go back to doing some of the things the Obama administration was doing, for instance, reestablishing a Tribal Nations Summit, a Tribal Advisory Council. And on top of that, I would strengthen, and this goes to your question, the requirement for consultation with Native communities when there are projects or issues on their lands that are impacting their quality of life. And I have even called for not only consultation, but consent to be required when certain types of projects are going through Native lands. I'm proud that I was the first candidate in this cycle to actually put out a policy regarding indigenous communities and peoples in the United States, to respect tribal sovereignty, our treaty obligations, and to make sure that we can improve that relationship by not turning the other way, by not making the same mistakes that we've made in the past, by listening and then actually acting on what we hear for a change. Those are the kinds of things that I'd like to do.
Thank you. And Secretary Castro, this was just a glimpse of all the issues that we're working on here in Nevada. The community here meets every single day to address not only the issues that you heard about today, but many others. And I guess as a final thought, I just want to know, what are your takeaways from Nevada, and how do you plan on making sure that Nevada is not just remembered as a caucus state, but as a community that really rallies around each other to make sure that we build not only a country, but a community that's better for everyone?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you so much, Raquel. Thank you to everybody here and to everybody in the audience. I guess what I take away from Nevada is that two things. In many ways, Nevada represents a microcosm of the challenges and also the opportunities that we're dealing with. When I think about immigration, when I think about the housing market and the experience that people have had here in housing, when I think about jobs and the economy, both the boom and the bust, and I think about all of these other issues that affect individuals and their families. I think of this state. I believe that it's actually a very good place to have a caucus because it's diverse and it's grappling with so many different issues that the nation is grappling with and will continue to grapple with. I also think of Nevada and I think of the future. Look, Nevada looks like the future of this country. And it's dealing with the issues that are going to present themselves not only to the next president, but to this country for many, many years to come. And so you're right, this state is important for many, many different reasons, well beyond the fact that it's the third state to vote. Maybe the most important is because if we can get it right here in Nevada, if y'all can get it right here in Nevada, that sends a great message about our ability in the years to come to prosper in all of the United States. That's why Nevada matters. Thank you all very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Secretario Castro.
Siento algo que me mueve, un ritmo que me hace bailar. Todos son pareja, todos vamos a gozar. Baila, baila esta cumbia, mueve, mueve la cintura. Todos las manos en alto y griten, griten con locura. Baila esta cumbia, un ritmo, ritmo sin igual, nadie.
Check.
Hello, Nevada. What do you think so far? Woo! My name is Bree Carlson. I'm the Deputy Director of People's Action. I want to tell you something a little bit more important. I'm also from Reno, Nevada, and I started my organizing career with Plan and Plan Action. So I am extremely excited to be here. People's Action is a multiracial people power organization. We are a national organization whose power comes from our member organizations like Plan Action, organizing and building power across the country. We are urban, suburban, and rural. We organize across race and across place to bring the fight to the worst bad guys who deserve it the most. Put simply, as our best t-shirt will tell you, we fight evil for a living. In 2020, People's Action will mobilize 50,000 volunteers, organize 3 million voters, and we will send Trump packing. We will elect, this is more important, we will elect not only a progressive people's candidate, but a progressive people's platform to the highest office in the nation. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Are you ready? Woo! It's going to be a hell of a fight because the corporate conservatives see a growing threat to their endless profits. That threat, it's the people in this room. It's a pesky little thing called democracy. So we're going to continue to see threats. We're going to continue to see voter suppression. We're going to continue to see rigged political maps and flooding our politics with corporate cash. But the big strategy, as Pramila said earlier, the big strategy is divide and conquer. Using the tried and true lever of racism to sort out who wins and who loses in our society. Those of us in this room understand that that's not new, right? That's not new. But it is still dangerous. It is still dangerous. Trump is using the fear and desperation of people who've been left behind by our economy, by our democracy, and frankly, by the left to divide us. That is why he is ramping up the hateful, racist rhetoric against immigrants and people of color in this country, and that is not right. That ain't right. The plain truth is that Trump and his corporate cronies are betting that we cannot unite enough people in 2020 to win. But you know what? We take that bet because we found the source of our pain, and it is not each other, because we know that the people in this room are powerful. And when we point our love and our anger in the right direction, everything becomes possible. And that's exactly what we're going to do, right?
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all today? My name is Amanda. I'm the programs director at Plan and Plan Action. Woo, thank you. I'm proud to be here with you all today at the People's Forum in Las Vegas. I am so overwhelmed with emotion at the diversity of this room right now. People are here from all walks of life, from different backgrounds, represented in the room, and we all know representation matters. I'd like to take a moment to bring my parents into the room and my West Indian culture. It is in rooms like this that my parents fought hard for me to be in. And we know rooms like this, we have the power that they knew that in rooms like this, we have the power that we need to fight for our own liberation. I'm going to be vulnerable with you all for a second. I'm really inspired by all of the speakers who just were vulnerable with us and shared their stories. My parents are at an age where I don't know how much time I have left with them. And that's real. And I know many of you in this room feel that about your elders, your grandpas and grandmas, auntie and uncles. And we all have those same unbearable thoughts at times. When I think about my parents and what the struggle that they went through for me, I just want their fighting to be over. I don't want them to choose between having to pay their mortgage or the medical bills, because that's not right. I don't want that for my parents, and I know y'all don't want that for yours. I just want them to live in peace and prosperity. My parents are right now in India celebrating Diwali, and I want to share with you what that is. Tomorrow is Diwali. It's the Hindu festival of lights. Diwali ushers in the Indian New Year and is celebrated throughout India each year to commemorate to commemorate the return of Lord Rama to his kingdom. During the festival of Diwali, we worship deities, cleanse our spaces, and decorate with twinkly lights. My sister and I love to celebrate Diwali with our mom, who was raised Hindu, and made Diwali a very special time in our house growing up. Even though my mother lives in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, where I'm from, my sister and I now live here in Vegas. We light diyas together, half a country apart, so we can be together in spirit. Diyas are these little candles here, pictured on the screen. Light is one of the most universally celebrated symbols across all cultures and religions. It is our guide through the darkness, healing to the soul. It is spiritual and divine. It brings illumination and intelligence, knowledge and truth. It is the sun, and it is the avenger of evil. It is the light and source of pure love. Diwali is about honoring and celebrating that radiating light within each and every one of us. This holiday is so special for me, and I want to invite you all to celebrate with me. Everyone has a light on their seat, right? It's a glow stick. Even I don't have one. Can I please have? Thank you. Looks like this. I want y'all to, at the count of 3, crack the glow sticks with me, and I want to bring some light into this room. Can y'all do that with me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can y'all do that with me? Thank you. So at the count of 3, I want y'all to crack the glow sticks, and we'll say, Happy Diwali. 1, 2, 3. Happy Diwali! Oh my God! Look at this room! Can I please grab a picture? I'm so sorry, I have to. Thank you.
now that I've shared a little Diwali light with you, I want to invite you all to share with me. What is the light that you want to bring into the room? Who are the lights in your life that you want to bring into the room, into this movement? What politicized you and brought you here? So I'm going to ask every one of you to get on your Twitters right now, every one of you in this room, on the live streams, to share a photo or a picture of something that brings you light. Who are the lights in your life, and who do you fight for? Is it your parents, like mine, your dog Lucy, your aunties and uncles, or your partner? Don't forget to use the hashtag People's Forum. So everyone, take out your phones right now and join me, and I want to see y'all's on the Twitter feed so I can retweet it. Let's bring some light into the room on Twitter.
Thank you all. That was beautiful, right? Right? All right. So how did y'all feel about Julian Castro? And Congresswoman Jayapal? So I appreciate Congresswoman Jayapal giving me a little bit of a shout out, but none of this is possible without the strong team that works at the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada. So if you're able, I'm going to call their name and you're all going to cheer your heads off for them, okay? Bob Fulkerson. Stand up. Erica Castro. Beverly Harry. Amanda Kahn. Leslie Turner. Christine Saunders. Ian Bigley. Braseda Castro, Molly McGregor, Champagne Clark, Morgan Calder, Katie Lim, and folks who couldn't be here but helped, Rosa Molina, my DM Win, and of course our amazing board members, Raquel Cruz Juarez, Courtney Arrington, Lenore Jean-Baptiste, Matthew DeFalco, Ruben Murillo, Christina Lopez, and Erica Washington. So I know you all also have little green and red cards. We really want to see those. The candidates want to see those. You like what you hear? Put a green card. You don't like what you hear? Put a red card. They're not answering the question? Do a red card. And then one more little note I want to make sure we say. So these white cameras back here are live streaming, but if you are watching, there's also simultaneous Spanish translation, and you can call 669-900-6833, and the code is 607-342-252. And of course, this isn't the People's Forum without the people's voice. So once again, tweet with the hashtag, the People's Forum. We are trending in Las Vegas, and that's amazing because it is Las Vegas. As corny as it sounds, what is happening here today cannot stay here. Let's make sure the rest of the company knows what the people are doing.
All right. So we've said a few times, right, that this is not a forum about candidates. Why is that? It's a what? It's a people's forum. It's about the people in this room, because the election, first and foremost, is about us. It's about our issues, it's about our communities, and it's about the world we want to build together, right? Because understand this forum's about co-governance because no candidate, Pramila Jayapal, no candidate, no matter how great, no matter how progressive will save us, right? Amen. This forum is about everyone in this room having the opportunity to engage in a conversation with candidates to find out who wants to partner with us to change the world.
And we know that only a mass movement of, by, and for the multiracial working class people will be able to rise and meet the challenges of structural racism, climate breakdown, and economy rigged to benefit the 1%. To help articulate this collective vision, the members of People's Action, that includes groups like PLAN, and a lot of groups who are assembled here today that we will shout out a little bit later, we came together to create a people's platform for the 2020 election. It's our bottom-up version of people-powered solutions our communities need and deserve, and that we will continue to organize and fight for long after the election, no matter who wins. And for the sake of time, because it is a very robust platform, I must say, we're just going to name a couple of the core values that informed writing the vision and talk about some specific planks. And some of the specific planks that Plan Action and People's Action are advancing through active campaigns. But if you want the full 13-page version, you can find it on peoplesaction.org.
So we're going to start with racial equity. The power of racism in our society is that it's structural. It's in every single institution and it's embedded in our culture. We will rise up to tear down and rebuild every institution in our society until we get equitable outcomes. Right? We're for that. We will rise up and tear down every barrier anywhere it exists to racial equity. We will rise up to dismantle and remake institutions, already said that, and eliminate disparities until we have equitable outcomes in every aspect of life, until we have equal access to clean air and clean water, until we have good jobs that do not break on a racial disparity, until we have real restorative justice, until we have sovereignty and dignity for the Native people in our land, and quality education for all.
So who here in Nevada, Las Vegas, thinks we need an economic system built for the people and not just for the profits? So we rise up for a system that reverses the concentration of wealth and historic income inequality and allows workers and small businesses to thrive. We fight for a fair global system that puts an end to corporate abuse of global markets and workers around the world. And we fight for a financial system that places people's needs above profit and speculation.
Boo! Boo these pharmaceutical companies. Yes, ma'am. Gender equity. We rise up to take down the barriers that we are all facing based on sexual orientation, gender, and gender expression across all aspects of social and political life. We work for bold solutions, including guaranteed access to health care, equal access to economic success, guaranteed civil rights, and an end to gender violence.
Reparations. We demand a true democracy. We rise up for universally representative democracy. Too often, our voices have been denied, suppressed, and silenced. Governing power belongs in the hands of the people at every level of government. We fight for fair voter access, campaign finance, and districting systems to ensure we make real the unfulfilled promise of our democracy. And here are some of the campaigns that we'll be speaking about. Dignity at work. We're fighting to ensure that everyone has access to good jobs with good pay and good benefits, so every person can care for and support their families and have a secure retirement no matter who they are. We rise up for the freedom of working people to organize in unions. Who's a union member here? Woo! Who's a family member of a union member? Woo! That's right. NARA, the retirees. We rise up for the right to collectively bargain and advance their community's interest. We recognize and fight for the equal value, benefit, and compensation of currently undervalued and unpaid domestic labor and care work primarily done by women in the home with labor we do outside of the home. We know that half of the labor done in the home, and this is labor that keeps us alive, and it needs to be compensated.
Amen. Woo! Improved Medicare for all. We demand a healthcare system where we, the people, have the power, not corporate greed. We demand a healthcare system where everyone in this country, regardless of who you are or how you identify, can get quality healthcare when and where you need it. We're fighting for a just healthcare system in which race, gender, age, ability, income, immigration status do not determine who lives and who dies. We will end price gouging of our medicines. And we will end the racist war on drugs and the overdose crisis.
So who here has heard about a homes guarantee? We know that every person has a fundamental right to safe, secure homes. And we know that that right should mean more than the greed of corporate landlords and big developers. To make that vision real, we are fighting to win a national homes guarantee. Woo! Woo, woo! There's a good side. The Homes Guarantee builds 12 million units of green, comfortable, high-quality, socially owned housing. Institutes national rent control and tenant protections to renters from predatory landlords and real estate speculation. And the Homes Guarantee ends homelessness in this country by massively reinvesting, revitalizing, repairing, and expanding public housing.
So we're going to do a roll call later, but there's some other folks who need to go back to California after this forum. Ground Game LA, are you here? San Francisco Rising, you in the house? Woo! Along with them, I'm going to drive back to a California that's on fire. I'm going to drive back to a California with no power because we need a People's Green New Deal. We demand 100%, a 100% clean energy system that serves communities most directly impacted and devastated by racism in the environment and the impacts of climate change. We will dismantle systems that sacrifice the health, wealth, and livelihood of Black, Brown, Native, and poor communities in this country and around the world to the altar of corporate greed. We will win a People's Green New Deal that rises to the challenge of the climate crisis and ends the centuries, there we go, of environmental destruction. We want a regenerative economy run by and for working class people and people of color, along with indigenous people. Together, we will build an economy that puts people and the planet first.
All right, where are my Mass Lib folks at? So we want to end mass incarceration. We will fight for investments in harm reduction, restorative justice, and in mental treatment to combat mass incarceration, criminalization, state violence, and racist policing and court systems. We will build the foundations of true public safety and justice in our community by ending divestment and in the criminalization of Black, Brown, and Native communities that have been starved for resources too long. And on the note of ending mass incarceration, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Our mayor, Carolyn Goodman, is trying to pass an ordinance. If you sleep or lay in a public place, she will fine you $1,000. And if you can't pay the fine, she will put you in jail. People without homes don't deserve incarceration. They don't deserve punishment.
They need a homes guarantee.
They need a homes guarantee. And they need leaders like Carolyn Goodman to recognize their worth and their dignity and have empathy and recognize we shouldn't be building stadiums, we should be building houses. So I hope everyone can come to the Las Vegas City Council meeting on November 6th. November 6th, the City Council will hear this at 9 a.m. and the people have to rise up and say, no, we do not put our brothers and sisters who have been failed by this economy in jail. And finally, we want a just immigration system. Just this week, Las Vegas Metro Police Department suspended their 287G program. And the following day, the city of Las Vegas announced they would stop honoring ICE detainers. This happened because of the work of activists who were directly impacted by our cruel and racist immigration system. And while this is a temporary victory and we enjoy this, suspending these programs does not bring anybody back who was deported. We need to abolish ICE, but even when we abolish ICE, we have to recognize most of those folks will not be coming back. We have lost those people, and some of that trauma will never be restored and cured. So we have to fight for a president who has a plan. We have to protect our communities from racist policing programs that make money off of separating families and putting them in prison. So we fight to ensure our country welcomes all against our current. We fight for a country that welcomes all, and that's in contrast to our current immoral system designed to exploit labor for corporate profit. We'll end the militarization of our borders. Where's our Arizona family at? Contrary to what our president thinks, there is no border in Colorado. It stops at Arizona. Yes. So we'll end the militarization of our borders and detention and cruel policies that rip families apart. We will win a system that affords a full place in our society, our economy, and our democracy for everybody, regardless of their religion or their country of origin, and advance the right of all people who call the United States home. And we also have to recognize the role that the United States has in forcing people to migrate. We have to recognize the role that our world has in not addressing climate change and creating climate refugees, which forces people to migrate to the United States.
So, do we have it right? Yeah. Are you ready to work to elect this platform? Yeah. Woo! So let's make sure they know that today.
Hello, Las Vegas. How are y'all doing today? Excellent. I am Carol Lautier, and I am it's a privilege to be here in this room, to be here with all of you, centering the voices of grassroots leaders in a space where grassroots leaders directly engage political candidates. It doesn't happen every day, and I just feel really grateful for the time that you all have invested here today and the work of People's Action and Plan Action to bring you all here together. So I'm here with Demos Action. a national organization where we provide bold, progressive policies to shape the governing agendas of elected officials and political candidates like those here with us today. I want to talk to you for a moment about what's happening in our democracy right now and what we can do about it together. Across the country, local and state elections, affordable housing, educational opportunity, and even the cost of public goods and utilities are controlled by the wealthiest among us. In places like the District of Columbia, Albuquerque, Seattle, the biggest donations to political campaigns come from folks who are overwhelmingly wealthy, white, and who don't even live in the cities that their dollars influence. In cities like Flint, Michigan, local residents pay exorbitant costs for water contaminated with lead, while state lawmakers allow major corporations to pay as little as $200 for water rights, while those same corporations make millions selling that bottled water. Public schools, that ain't right. Public schools are underfunded, teachers are overworked, and in recent years, students are over-disciplined. Kids as young as 6 years old who once would have met with a guidance counselor for poor behavior have been handcuffed and arrested. It ain't right. And across the country, every day, people who have pursued education to create more opportunity for themselves and their families are drowning in student loan debt. But here's the question. Who cares the most about safe and affordable housing for working people in our communities? We do, that's right. Who believes that people should be able to support their families with a single job that pays a living wage? We do. Who believes that formerly incarcerated citizens deserve a second chance? We do. Who believes that we should support people who pursue an education to create a better life with scholarships and grants instead of burdensome loans? We do. And who knows that no matter how you come to this country, you deserve welcome and support? We do. And lastly, who believes that working people deserve access to clean water, healthy food, and quality health care? We do. We do. I'm here because at Demos Action, we have a bold, some would even say audacious idea. Those who are directly impacted by the most pressing social issues we face should be closest to the power to fix them. Whether you are a plumber or a professor, a veteran or unemployed factory worker, a returning citizen, a community elder, or an immigrant, you are voters and decision makers. The profound influence of big money in our democracy would suggest that wealthy people are the only folks smart enough to inform public policy and even serve in public office. That ain't right. That working people are somehow less capable, even though you make critical decisions every day about what is best for your family, your future, and your community. What would it take to liberate ourselves from the notion that we are not enough? For me, growing up in Eastern North Carolina, I knew the adults around me said it was important to vote, but I didn't see anyone in office actually listening to their concerns as citizens. As an adult, I've come to realize that our political system needs to hear the voices of hardworking people. So what do we need? What do we need to see ourselves as equal decision makers with elected officials? We need to be heard. We need more venues like this, where everyday people working to strengthen their communities get to have direct conversations with folks running for the highest office. And once elected, we need politicians to seek our ideas as vigorously, as diligently as they seek our votes. Thank you to everyone in this room who came here today to show candidates our boldest and most audacious ideas for the future of this country. And I want to recognize the folks that everyone here represents, grassroots leaders and organizers across the country who couldn't be in this room today. Because we know that the issues occurring in DC, in Flint, Seattle, and Albuquerque are also playing out in Las Vegas and communities across the United States. Thank you for lifting your voices in concert with folks seeking to represent us. Together, we are creating a stronger America where everyone has an equal say in our democracy and an equal chance in our economy. Thank you. And now I'm excited to bring up someone. It is my privilege to introduce someone who created a winning campaign by listening to and being accountable to people here in Las Vegas, Assemblyman Alex Asefa.
Hello, Nevada. Can you hear me? How y'all doing? I am Alex Asefa. I am the Assembly Representative from District 42. Originally from Ethiopia. I was a refugee living in Kenya until this country gave me a chance. I immigrated to this country in the year 2000, learned English as my third language, went to high school, went to college, I became a pilot, also picked up a degree in political science, running my own business now, until 2016 came along. The year that gave us this president. Yes, boo. But don't also go vote. Look, last year in the 2018 election, when this president was denigrating women, our state came out to vote in record numbers. For the first time in the history of this nation, we elected the first female majority legislature. In that same year when this president was denigrating Africans, calling us people from the shithole countries. Guess what? I'm a proud shitholer. In that same year, Nevadans came out in record numbers and elected someone like me to public office as the first African elected in our state. We didn't do this accidentally. We didn't do this, we didn't wake up and decide to do it overnight. We organized in record numbers. We registered people to vote in thousands and thousands. Not only did we register them to vote, we turned them out to vote. That's how a revolution happens. And in this year, in the 80th legislative session, myself, with my awesome colleagues in the legislature, when this president was taking the nation backwards, we took our state by the hand and ran with it forward. As I said, this doesn't happen by accident. In my campaign, the first thing we did was, as someone who came to this country seeing other systems and other failed governments, I knew there was something fundamentally wrong with our electoral system. That is, people don't participate in elections. They don't get out and vote. People actually die to find the opportunity to vote in other parts of the world. It wasn't a long time ago when black people in this nation could not vote. It is because everybody, including black people, came out and fought for their right to vote. Today, we are all entitled to vote. It wasn't a long time ago when women in this country could not vote. It is because women stepped up and fought. Today, women could not only vote, they are also the majority in our state legislature. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we get together and organize. At the end of the night, on election night, a bunch of dollars do not count. It is the people that count. It is how many votes that are cast that count. So my message to you, like I did in my campaign, we can do that across this state, across this nation. Get out and organize people. Understand why people do not participate in the electoral system. It is important because they don't think government works for us. It is important because they think big money is the ruler, not people. What I did was I stepped up and spoke to people wherever they were, in their churches, in their mosques, in the coffee shops, in the restaurants, wherever people were gathered. I was there talking to them. And my ask after having those conversations was that I want you to connect your pen with the voter registration form. As a result of those conversations, people took action and they registered to vote. And we followed up on them. We made sure they had transportation to the polling sites. We made sure they had access to the voting sites. They came out in record numbers, and we see today history being made in our state right here in the state of Nevada. 2020 is not that far away. We have a monumental election year coming up where we are prepared to replace this president, to restore dignity to the White House, to restore dignity to the people, to restore the greatness of America all over the world. That cannot happen by accident. It happens because we are organized, we turn out to vote, and we get our neighbors to get out and vote. Are you with me? Are we together? Look, we'll do that, and in the 2021 session, we'll get back to the legislature and continue the amazing work we started this year. Let's do this together. Thank you.
Hello.
Let's switch. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Christina Lopez, and I am a proud board member for Plan Action here in Nevada. Yeah, woo. Now, I know we just observed is the key word there, I'm learning, Nevada Day yesterday. But my own personal Nevada Day is coming up. My own. Now, I know it may seem like a small, short length of time, especially standing next to a generations-long Nevadan like Bob, but my 2-year Nevada-versary is coming up.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I've been a proud Nevadan for 2 years now, and I moved here originally not for the neon lights, but to work. I came here to work on an event y'all may know a little bit about. It was the 2018 midterm elections. Yeah. Packed up my car, came on over to Nevada. Now, while my efforts in the beginning were focused throughout the state, I mean, the ground I covered was from the southern tip of Nevada to the top of White Pine County, so small amount of ground there. So while my efforts were spread throughout the state, I knew exactly where I would be come election day. I knew that I'd be focused somewhere in the Latino community, but I had no idea that I was about to become part of one of the most beautiful communities I've ever been a part of. And for all of you who know me, you know that we are standing right in the heart of that community right now, right here in East Las Vegas. I walk into rooms and yell East Side, and people call me Donna at this point, because that's what we do. After we won big and wrapped up election day, I remember my mom calling, because it was just before Thanksgiving, and she said, "Hey, Christina, when are you coming home?" And I had to deliver the great news that I was already home. I was going to be staying here, and I now live here in Las Vegas, and my 2-year Nevada-versary is coming up, so that's great. I was honored to serve then, I'm honored to serve now, and I'm especially honored to serve with an organization like Plan Action so we can continue to build that progressive power from the ground up. It's the only way that we're really going to reverse inequality, maybe protect our planet a little bit, and save our democracy. What do you think, Bob?
Beautiful. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Fulkerson. I'm the Development Director of Plan Action. I'm really happy to be here today. Shout out to all my friends and colleagues and comrades from Northern Nevada that are in the house. Thanks for coming all that way. We represent. Let's show Las Vegas what it's about. I'm a fifth-generation Nevadan. I'm a radical patriot. I've been arrested for civil disobedience 10 times in 5 Nevada counties and twice in Washington, D.C. I spent the last 35 years building a Nevada and a country that has never existed before, but I know we can create into being.
I think you're slowing down a little bit, Bob. Didn't you say you wanted to get arrested in every county in Nevada? I look forward to watching that happen. I don't know if I'll be a part of it, but I'll be there. I'll be there somehow. You just heard from our friends at Demos Action about voter suppression and about the political disengagement that our communities face. When I first arrived here, again, I knew I would land in a Latino community, and being a proud Latina myself, I'm well versed in the negative narratives that really plague our communities. The amount of times that we hear that we can't be relied on, that electorally you can't count on us for much. Good luck, Christina. You're never going to turn out voters in the way that you think you are. Your heart's in the right place. But maybe don't set the bar too high. Don't set your team up for failure. I heard that time and time again, and I gathered all that up because it was nothing new to me, and I threw it in the trash where it belongs. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time reminding my team that communities of color, we make up majority of this nation, the majority. And if we turned out in the numbers that we actually represent, we could turn American politics on its head. Yeah. So I made sure that they knew their mission and that their mission was clear. And if you were in and out of our office, you heard this line time and again. I told Mr. Tom Perez himself that we were here to do one thing, and that was just to prove that communities of color don't fail elections. We swing them. Yeah. So after all the naysayers, after all that we heard all year long, we were so proud to see that come Election Day 2018, we not only registered our tiny little team, the most voters statewide, and Assemblyman Acefa, when I got here, I heard all about you, and I was chasing you all year long. That was the one number that I had to beat last year, but it was a pleasure running alongside you. But we registered the most voters statewide. And not only that, our 2018 voter turnout numbers paced, in a midterm year, paced with the 2016 presidential election numbers. Eastside did that. So, and again, I say, we didn't do this alone. It was this community here that linked arms with me. I can't tell you how many meals they brought, how many times they came by to make sure we had water and a laugh for the day because they knew that we were working way too hard. But it was a community that came together, and they did that. So this is why I'm committed to fighting against voter suppression and to build a truly independent political power within our communities. As organizers, we know that the only way we're going to keep power within the people's hands is if each and every one of us are engaged in this fight. That's why we are very proud to announce that Plan Action is launching their individual membership program.
That's right. So today we're launching an individual membership program because the people who profit from private prisons, from poisoning our water, from exploiting immigrants, are not afraid to buy mercenary armies of lobbyists and politicians. But we need to come between those profiteers and their profits. And we will end the historic looting of our human and natural communities. And we will take back what's been stolen. And that takes power. It takes people power. It takes all of us. And that's why we want to build that power by asking you to become a member of Plan Action today. So they're going to flash on the screen some information. If you can text Nevada to 67076. So just text the word Nevada to that number, or go down here to that peoplesaction.org, Our Nevada. It's a really great page that will help you to go online. Or our beautiful row captains are handing out wonderful envelopes right now. And those envelopes are a place where you can also put in your donation to become a member.
And we want to continue building on the efforts from before. We want to continue building on what we built in 2018, and we want to win big in 2020, right? We want to win big. I am pledging to become a Plant Action member today by donating $25 a month, and I need each and every one of you in the room to join me.
And even if you don't have $25 a month to give, if you have $5 to join today, or $20 a month, or $50 a month to join today, any amount helps to fuel our movement. And you know, our movement is so much bigger than the people in this room today. Those watching on the live stream, we need your support too to continue to make movement politics a reality, not just in Nevada, but across the country. And this is the People's Forum, right? Nevada's the third primary state, and your contributions will help organize communities to elect a people's champion.
That's right. And today, Bob told me that we were expecting quite a crowd. And he said, Christina, you know, I think we can feel comfortable setting our sights on maybe 60 new members. And I've been told to play small for a really long time. And Bob, I don't know how Northern Nevada does it.
Ooh.
But East Las Vegas does not play small. So if we have 200 people in this room, I expect to see 200 new members. It is the only way that this organization and other organizations can continue to build on all of the efforts that everyone has put in to ensuring that we have that fair and equitable democracy. So you want to close us out?
Just that get some music going, fill out those envelopes. Yeah. This is what people's power looks like. We're going to win, thanks to you all joining together with us.
If I could breathe underwater, every fish would walk on land. If I could fly in the sky, baby, then wings would be on man. If words could move mountains, if I could swim the ocean without drowning, if there was pain without hurting, then the impossible has been found. 'Cause baby, we can do more than we know, more than we know. Baby, baby, ooh, there's more than we know, more than we know. Yeah. so I could start my life over again. Sometimes you gotta let it go just to make it possible. Sometimes you gotta do it, be willing to lose it. Freedom has no price, you know. Thinking
All right, thanks for returning those membership envelopes to those row captains. Let's bring them on up here and see what People Power is all about. You're all beautiful. There's other ways to join. So join now, and we love you and we appreciate your support. This is what democracy looks like.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Amanda.
And Champagne.
Yes! So obviously, we want to know who's in the building, who's repping who. So obviously, folks from Vegas are in the house. Folks from Vegas, can I hear you?
Rep your city, Vegas. Born and raised, Vegas.
So if you hear your organization's name, I want you all to hold up your signs and let us know that you're in the building.
And rep your org.
People's Action.
Plan Action.
That's us. That's us.
You see it.
Culinary, are you in the house?
Woo! Moms Demand Action. Where you at?
One America, are you here?
League of Reservation Conservation Voters.
Lucha.
Okay.
Well, we definitely know Lucha's here.
Make it work.
Battleborn Progress, where are you at?
Make the road, Nevada.
United Action for Idaho.
Reno Sparks NAACP.
Demos.
Planned Parenthood.
Reno Sparks Indian Colony, where are you at?
HRC.
Who's repping from the Western Shoshone tribes?
Woo! When I say whose house, you say our house. Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
When I say if we don't win, shut it down. If we don't win,
Shut it down.
if we don't win,
Shut it down.
if we don't win,
Shut it down.
whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
If we don't win,
Shut it down.
if we don't win,
Shut it down.
if we don't win,
Shut it
if we
down.
don't win,
Shut it down.
whose house?
Our house.
One love, one love.
Thank you, everyone.
All my row captains represent. Woo! Come on up here. Let's lead a chant. All my row captains. Where are the rest of my row captains? All right. Let's do this chant. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
We must love each other
We must love each other
and protect each other.
and protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our faith.
Again, it is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other
and protect each other.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Let's do it one more time, everybody. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Woo! Thank you.
Greetings, Las Vegas. Vegas, hello. Las Vegas, hello. We want to send this, swing this over to our good friends in South Carolina. Miss Monique, who will be co-moderating with me in Senator Sanders' living room features. Monique, greetings from Las Vegas, family.
Hey, y'all. I didn't know if I was on or not. So for folks who don't know me, my name is Monique Normand. I'm originally from Las Vegas, actually. My family was heavily involved in the culinary union. Many of them still are involved. So I grew up, watching my family, walk the picket lines and fight for their rights and benefits. I also went to Western High School. I'm an alumni from there, one of the first high schools, in Las Vegas. And in Western High School is where I really noticed how policy really affects all of us. Our school was getting inadequate funding. And I could see, we half the time didn't have books that, we could take home and actually do our homework. And other schools, were getting new uniforms and things like that. So that kind of really opened my eyes. And then later, I went to University of Nevada, Reno. I'm sorry, it's all in Nevada. I got my bachelor's and my master's there, and I'm actually a social worker in Nevada, Reno now. And my first job right out of getting my master's was community organizing with Plan and Plan Action. So that's kind of how I started this work. I was a voting engagement organizer, and I registered folks to vote. And it was a great experience because I really got a chance to meet with folks outside of just the community I worked in and see what their, what the things that they were dealing with, and learn their stories and learn that we actually had really similar struggles. And actually, that is why I came all the way out to Carolina today, because this work is important. We have a lot of stake in Nevada. Affordable housing is huge right now. Nevadans deserve to have housing that they're not getting pushed out of where rents are going up. They deserve to have affordable housing. They deserve to have, their teachers and their schools taken care of. Immigrants deserve to, not be fearful when they go outside of their homes that they're going to be stopped. And we deserve to not have mining pit lakes in our backyards due to irresponsible mining. So those are some of the things that we are dealing with. And when I got this chance to come down here and work with Plan Action again and People's Action, I just jumped on the chance. And and I'm really grateful for everyone who just brought me down. I'm grateful for Senator Sanders for taking his time and coming and having this important discussion with us. And thank you all. Back to you all in Vegas.
No, thank you. You definitely are revered in this space out here. Senator Sanders, you are liked as well. But
not revered like her.
Monique, sincerely, your story is very powerful and impactful for me personally. I'm a byproduct of California, and I'm a transplant here in Nevada. Again, to hear your story and to hear the smiles that accompany people talking about you, make sure you know you are loved out here. I want to say that it is a pure honor to be in this space, to co-moderate with you. I'm definitely a fan of Senator Sanders. It would have been a pleasure to meet him formally, but I'm a trust that I'll extend my handshake through you. I do want to send it back to Kakalaki, and maybe Monique, you would be able to allow the senator to introduce himself to our crowd.
Yes, please do.
Well, first of all, let me begin. Monique, thank you for being here, and let me thank everybody up there on the podium, and let me thank all of you who are in attendance, and most importantly, let me thank People's Action for their grassroots activism. If there was ever a time in the history of this country where we need millions of people to stand up, not only to Donald Trump, but to stand up for economic and social and racial and environmental justice, this is that moment. And the way we defeat the 1% is when the 99% come together and fight for an agenda that works for all of us, not just like the campaign contributors. So thank you so much, People's Action, for what you're doing.
Right on. Thank you, Senator Sanders. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the format. We have a team of family members here, and we're going to be relaying a few stories and then, again, sending a question to your way. We're going to begin with Jocelyn Cuevas right here. Jocelyn is someone who I consider family. We have been blazing the trail, doing this work together for over a calendar. She's a student at UNLV. She's definitely invested in fighting for our people. And I have a phrase that the youth are the truth. We're only going to be as good as our youth in this country. And this is the truthful youth right here. She's serious about this work, serious about her education, and she has a very, very, very powerful story. So please, Jocelyn, share your story with the people.
Okay, hello, my name is Jocelyn Cuevas. I'm a sophomore at UNLV, a member of Undocu Network, and a policy fellow at Nevada Student Power. I am a documented student that has worked on immigration advocacy work since I was 16 and a junior in high school. I did this once I realized what my status meant and how the 2016 election could affect my family. My family and I arrived 16 years ago. I grew up here, and since then, we have called this place our home. My direct family lives in Vegas, but in the earlier part of my life, most of my family lived in a small town in Arizona named Bullhead City. This was until 2010 when Arizona passed a bill that allowed sheriffs to collaborate with ICE. This caused two of my uncles to be pulled over for a traffic violation and ended up being transferred to ICE. After this, some of my family moved away, but I still had family living there. With the fear of my family going through the same thing, there was a moment in my life where I didn't get to visit the aunts, uncles, and cousins I had grown up with. At that point in time, I didn't understand why. A few years later, I found out what it meant to be undocumented, why I couldn't visit my family, why they had to come visit us, and why we couldn't spend holidays together. A few years after that, my family was able to convince my parents to come back and visit the small town. It was a slow progress, but my parents once again felt comfortable driving in that town. However, I did not. As soon as we crossed the bridge into Arizona, I feel my chest get heavy and I struggle to breathe. I am always aware of our surroundings to make sure there's no cops around. While I know my parents are following every law while driving, I still have the fear that a cop will make up a reason for pulling us over, and the same thing that happened to my uncles will happen to my parents. Visiting family should be a fun experience and not something that brings fear and triggers my anxiety. This is a very big fear for my family that has already caused us to have a conversation about what we would do if this was to happen. In my family, there are 4 of us: my mom, my dad, me, and my younger brother. My brother and I are 5 years apart, and I believe he's not fully able to understand what this will mean for us. After the 2016 elections, my family and I would constantly have conversations that would end up in arguments. We would talk about our plan. My parents were convinced that the best thing was for us to move back. However, I did not feel the same. I would argue with my family that I wanted to stay here, that this was my home, and this is where I had grown up with. At the end, my family decided to stop talking about it and that we would deal with it when the moment comes. I do not want that moment to come. And our home should not be having these conversations because I know my family deserves to be here and we deserve to be together like we have always been. You've said in the past that you don't agree with open borders, and repealing Section 1325 of the Immigration and Naturalization Act would do just that. You have now switched your stance to agree with most candidates. Are you really in favor of repealing Section 1325 to finally end criminalizations of families like mine?
I certainly am in favor. Trump, and let me be very clear, no misunderstanding here. Trump passed or implemented this policy through executive order, and on my first day as president, we would undo what Trump has done by executive order. Other thing that we would do, and, so there's no misunderstanding here. Trump, by executive order, took away the legal status of 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. On day one, we would restore that legal status for all of the young people eligible for DACA in this country. Furthermore, what we would do is do what is long overdue, is to end the terror, end the fear that so many undocumented people are feeling right now. I've talked to too many kids who are in school right now who are scared to death that when they get home from school, their parents may not be there. So what we are going to do is end the ICE raids. We are going to move forward aggressively for comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for all 11 million undocumented people. And also, as part of our new border policy, what we are going to do is create a border policy that is humane. And that means that we will not be snatching babies away from the arms of their mothers. And because we're not going to criminalize the border, we're not going to put children into cages in the border. Bottom line is, we are going to end the demonization of the undocumented in this country and develop the immigration policies that the vast majority of the American people want to see.
Thank you much. Thank you much, Senator Sander. We're going to full speed ahead to Ms. Jasmine Bryant. Jasmine here is a Las Vegas local, a full-time UNLV student. She has been blazing her trail. She's came up assisting with policy initiatives with the good folks over at Make It Work Nevada, who I'm sure always represent. Just grinding for women of color and to be brutally honest, their medical and health issues. So please, Jasmine, share your story, if you would.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for your time, Senator Sanders. My name is Jasmine. I'm an organizer with Make It Work Nevada, where we organize and lift up the experiences, the concerns, and the interests of Black women and women of color here in Nevada, women just trying to get by, women who are on the front lines of economic, racial, and reproductive justice every day. As a young woman, I'm very concerned about the state of reproductive care in America. I never thought that I'd grow up having to worry about my reproductive care or my rights being taken away from me, but seeing that Roe v. Wade is under existential threat, I am concerned for myself, for folks like me, and for those who are in need of access to safe abortions and quality reproductive care. We've all heard about the rollbacks on reproductive care and abortion rights in states like Alabama and Georgia, Ohio, and Missouri. We know that these restrictive policies not only endanger the lives of Black, brown, trans, and non-binary people, but also jeopardize their economic security. Studies show that when someone seeks an abortion, it is denied. If it is denied, they are more likely to fall into poverty or fall further into poverty. Moreover, the United States has an abysmal record on maternal health compared with other wealthy nations. Even as maternal death rates have fallen across the world, outcomes for American mothers has worsened. This is even more absurd given that Black women are the most consistent and dependable voting bloc, and we are the ones dying at higher rates. That is unacceptable. And these deaths, remind you, these are preventable deaths. So, Senator Sanders, if elected president, what will you do to make sure that women like myself and others are not dying from pregnancy and childbirth at such high rates?
Well, thank you very much for that excellent question. You're quite right. As a nation, because we have a dysfunctional and broken healthcare system, our maternal death rates and our infant mortality rates are much higher than countries all over the industrialized world. And for Black women, they are 3 times higher than they are for white women. That is unacceptable. And what we have got to do are a number of things. First of all, and I'm helping to lead the effort on this, we have got to understand that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And that is why I am prepared to take on all of the insurance companies, all of the drug companies, all of the healthcare industry, and finally pass Medicare for All single-payer program guaranteeing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country. That is an enormous step forward for America, but it still does not address the question that you asked. Because right now in America, we have enormous disparities between Black and white. The wealth gap is 10 to 1. Healthcare gap is enormous. So what we are going to do in terms of healthcare is to understand that the African American community, the Latino community, needs doctors and nurses who come from a similar background than the people in that community. So when I talk about making public colleges and universities tuition free and canceling all student debt, that is...
I'm sorry, Senator, if I could bug you to just stay right with the issue of the health of Black mothers, please.
Well, here it is. Yeah. Black mothers will do better when we have Black doctors and nurses. And the only way we're going to get a sufficient number of Black doctors and nurses is when we make public colleges and universities tuition free, cancel student debt, and enable all people, regardless of their income, to go to medical school or to nursing school.
And Senator, are you for abortion?
Oh my God, yes. I have a 100% pro-choice voting record. And let me assure everybody, I will never, ever nominate somebody to the U.S. Supreme Court who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade.
Senator, last question here from Las Vegas pertaining to this issue. Would you be interested in removing the height amendment?
Absolutely. And that's how I have voted over and over again. Okay. On that issue, look, if you believe in abortion rights, you don't say it's okay for wealthy women, but not okay for low-income women. And by the way, I want everybody to understand this. My Medicare for All proposal includes abortion rights and reproductive rights.
Thank you, Monique, as well as Senator. We're moving right along to our next guest. Jordan Warren is a fabulous young lady with a very impactful and powerful story. She's originally from Pennsylvania, currently a Las Vegas resident. She has passions around, her passion is really around women's health. So please, Jordan, feel comfortable sharing your story.
Hello. So in 2016, I went to a Planned Parenthood and I didn't get an abortion. I was uninsured and jobless at the time. I was having issues with my reproductive health, and the only place that would provide care to me was Planned Parenthood. Title X funding covered my visit in full. A few days later, I learned that that visit also saved my life. Because of a free STD test I received, I was diagnosed with HIV. At the time, I was devastated, but in hindsight, that was a joyous moment as Planned Parenthood was able to diagnose me and refer me to treatment before it was too late. In 2018, when I had insurance, a job, and could essentially have my pick of OBGYN providers, I was told on multiple occasions that the wait to get on birth control and for a pap smear would be 2 to 3 months. I called my local Planned Parenthood and I had an appointment 2 days later. In 2019, I moved from Louisiana to Las Vegas and needed to get into an HIV treatment program. I called the health department and local clinics, left voicemails, and no one returned my calls. Again, it wasn't until I went to a local Planned Parenthood that I was put in touch with trusted and competent HIV care providers, something I rely on heavily and was able to access because of relationships Planned Parenthood has built within the community. The Trump administration has dangerously enforced the global gag rule, forcing Planned Parenthood to walk away from Title X funding. This administration has grossly disregarded the lives of millions of women, including me. All of this simply because a portion of the work Planned Parenthood does is around abortions. Planned Parenthood provides abortion services, but they do much more. I remember this every time someone shares with me that they needed access to birth control, emergency contraception, pregnancy testing, STD testing, treatments and vaccines, cancer screenings, infertility treatments, and many of the other services that Planned Parenthood provides. So, Senator Sanders, in Nevada, nearly 60% of all Title X patients in the state are uninsured and their health could be at risk. How do you plan on protecting the vital care that these patients need from ideologically extreme policies like the Title X gag rule?
Well, what Trump has done with an executive order in terms of women's rights and the right of women to control their own bodies, what he has done with executive order, I will undo with executive order. In other words, I believe that organizations like Planned Parenthood, and I am a huge fan of Planned Parenthood because everything you said is true. They do a fantastic job, not just making sure that women can control their own bodies, but in so many other areas. Trump wants to cut funding, do away with funding for Planned Parenthood. I will expand funding for Planned Parenthood. But the bottom line is, I happen to believe that a woman's right to control her own body is a constitutional right. It is the right of a woman, and it is not the right of government at the local, state, or federal level to take away that right. So I would do everything that I could to make sure that women in this country not only can control their own bodies, but get the information they need in terms of reproductive rights. And by the way, not only in this country, we will end this Mexico City agreement, which prohibits the United States government from funding organizations all over the world who support reproductive rights and abortion rights for women.
Thank you much, Senator Sanders. Thank you much. We're going to be concluding with 2 more guests. I'm going to introduce Miss Mary Gibson right now. Mary is from a citizen of the Timok tribe of Western Shoshone in the Elko Band. She is a loving mother and grandmother. Definitely her her coolest hat that I see is she is a full-time librarian. I'm wholeheartedly committed to our youth being able to read at a young age. So librarians are such a key component of our education system. So I really dig and want to highlight that with you. She'll be speaking to a passion around ancestral land. It's a consistent theme. We love our brothers and sisters in the tribes, and we definitely need and expect firm support from the executive office when we're talking about them. So please, Mary, share your story.
Thank you. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge my Western Shoshone, Paiute, and Washoe relatives here. If you'd please stand and show Nevada who the first people of this land are, we would love to have that acknowledgement. Thank you. Mr. Sanders, I'd like to share my story with you. It begins with my ancestors, the Nuwa. When translated, Nuwa means the people, or Western Shoshone. The Nuwa have a shared relationship with Nuwa Sogobia, that's the people's Earth Mother. And this relationship is based on respect, reciprocity, and reverence. The Nuwa Sogobia is integral to our identity. Our history is written across the landscape of this land. The Nuwa believe that everything on earth is alive. The mountains, the water, the plants, the animals, the rocks, the trees, the people. Everything has a purpose here, and everything has its own power and spirit. In essence, we are all related. The Nuwa, my ancestors, entered into a treaty with the United States. It's the 1863 Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Mr. Sanders, it's important to note that this treaty did not cede land. Rather, it identified our boundaries, which is an extension of parts of Utah, Idaho, northeastern and central Nevada, into Southern California. This is Nuwa Sogobia. Nuwa people agreed to share this land with others. We did not cede that land. But unfortunately, the United States has refused to recognize our treaty. And through the unjust, biased, and racist laws, the United States has dispossessed our people of our land. They've dispossessed and took away our access to our lands, our ancestors, and they have claimed it as their own. You might hear that Nuwa Sogobia is known as public lands, but in reality, it's our land. It's Shoshone land. So to bring my story full circle, Mr. Sanders, I'd like to bring my story full circle to me, to my children, to my grandchildren, and other Nuwa people. We have witnessed the destruction and devastation of mining and what it's done to our ancestral lands, with huge gaping holes in our mountains, with the poisoned water and the air. The mining industry continues to desecrate our lands, our ancestors, our things that are in the earth, that are in the rocks, that are in the mountains. So, with that being said, I have a dear, special person in my life who likened the destruction of what mining is doing. Christopher has said that mining is digging holes in the spirit. So, Mr. Sanders, my question to you is, if you are elected president, how will you ensure that the 1872 General Mining Act will be reformed in ways that will protect our sacred lands, our waters, our ancestors, our life? Thank you.
Mary, thank you very much for that question. And I don't have to tell anybody who is listening the horrific things that have been done to the Native American people from the first day that settlers came to this country. And this is a promise that I make to you, Mary, and to the Native American people, and that you will be involved in the decision-making. For too long, I've talked to people all over this country, Native Americans. They have very little input into what is happening on their land, and that will change. So you will be part of the process. You will not have bureaucrats telling you what to do, but you will be involved in the decision-making. Second of all, in terms of your particular question, I happen to think that climate change is an existential threat not only to our country, but to the entire world. And I will do everything that I can to take on the fossil fuel industry and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, away from oil, away from gas, away from coal, into energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And we are going to make that transformation because we have introduced by far the most comprehensive climate change proposal, which will move us rapidly all over this country, not only on Native American land, but all over this country, away from fossil fuel. Other point that I would make, it is unacceptable to me, and it would be as president, to have mining interests, large corporations come in and invade Native American property, Native American land, in order to exploit that land, exploit those resources, and despoil that land. So count me as an ally against this form of corporate greed.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, for a poignant, real answer. We're going to be culminating with my family. Miss Carol Lotte in the building has made the long trek from Washington, D.C., our state's capital. This will be the second time she has entertained the stage. I do want to highlight that she had to navigate through a couple we'll call them plane malfunctions, some insecurities with some planes. So she had to make a couple planes, has really navigated all through yesterday to get here and has showed yourself very brilliant and articulate. So I want to commend you for that, and just hopefully share a little bit of your story and petition the senator for a question.
Thank you so much, Takeda. And thank you, Senator Sanders, for being here with us. My name is Carol Lotier, and I'm here with Demos Action. I'm originally from Eastern North Carolina. My family was working class and devoutly Christian. The first lessons I learned about justice and equity came from the Black church. Most of our members were disenfranchised until the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. I grew up watching them rise extra early on voting days, often casting their ballots before heading to jobs as janitors, factory workers, and domestics. Their example and the pride they took in voting taught me that the Voting Rights Act opened new pathways to political power for all people, but especially for communities of color. Today, I believe in working for an inclusive democracy, one that centers racial equity, because people of color are once again disproportionately excluded from full participation. Working people, especially people of color, who want to serve their communities by running for office are often prohibited by the cost. The money required to run winning campaigns most often comes from a predominantly white, wealthy donor class that is driven more by corporate interests than the interests of everyday people. Voter purges, voter ID requirements, and dwindling polling places in poor, Black, and brown communities also undermine confidence in our political system. In some ways, communities of color who are excluded from full participation in our democracy are the experts on strengthening it. So my question, Senator Sanders, as president, how would their expertise help to inform your democracy reform agenda?
Great. Well, thank you very much, Carol, for that very important question. So let's lay it out on the table. And let us have the courage to acknowledge that we today have a corrupt political system. A corrupt political system in which, as a result of Citizens United and other decisions, billionaires are able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to help elect candidates who represent the rich and the powerful. That is not what American democracy is about, and I will do everything I can to bring about real campaign finance reform, which means one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. Second of all, as a result of this disastrous Supreme Court decision gutting the Voting Rights Act, you have Republican governments all over this country that literally, days afterward, figuring out everything that they could do to suppress the vote in one way or another. How cowardly are these people who don't have the guts to participate in free and fair elections? Trust me, my Department of Justice will be working against these guys every single day to make sure that everybody in this country, 18 years of age or older, has the right to vote. And we're going to do everything we can to make it easier for people to vote, not harder for people to vote. Last point. Last point is you are looking at a candidate who does not have a super PAC, does not want a super PAC. My campaign has raised more contributions from more Americans. At this point, over 1 million people have contributed to our campaign, working class people making a contribution of $16 on average. That is more campaign contributions than any candidate in the history of the United States of America at this point in an election. So what I believe is exactly the opposite what Trump and Republicans believe. They believe that they should do everything they can to make it harder for people to vote, people of color, young people, working class people. I'm going to do everything I can to make it easier for people to vote. You're 18 years of age,
Senator,
you vote in America.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Senator. I really love everything that you've said. I do think my question is, or what I'm trying to ask more directly is, how will communities of color be able to share directly with your administration such that the policies that you advance reflect the experiences of Black and brown communities in particular?
And my answer is that we will have the most diverse administration in the history of this country, that the decisions that we make, whether it's the Native American community, the Latino community, or the Black community, will be heavily influenced by input from those communities on top. I believe in democracy from the bottom on up, not from the top on down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Sanders. We're going to culminate this session. I want to first by saluting my team here. I love and respect all of you guys. Thank you for sharing your truth and speaking your truth on such a platform. Senator Sanders, a ton of respect for you. Definitely didn't have to take the technical difficulties that we presented to you, but you did, and you stood up in the paint and did that. So we salute you for doing that. And Monique, you are loved and missed out here in Las Vegas, so please know that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Nevada. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. My name is Kanisha Lenore Jean-Baptiste, and I'm a proud born and raised Nevadan, okay? But I am also the privileged daughter of Haitian immigrants, Chimène and Fonso Jean-Baptiste. So it is a privilege and an honor to be amongst you all today. Today I'll be moderating our last conversation with one of our presidential candidates. But something that I want you all to pay attention to is the diversity in the youth that we have on the stage today. Y'all, we have 14-year-olds asking presidential candidates questions, and that is really important. So this next individual that's going to be joining us on the stage says that he is not a politician. He rather go by nonprofit leader, family person, an entrepreneur who understands the economy. And the next person that we will be bringing to the stage for our 2020 presidential candidate, Andrew Yang. All right. Thank you for making it to the stage, Mr. Andrew Yang. We are so excited to have you here today. How are you feeling?
I feel great. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you particularly for those of you who rode a bus for hours to be here. Appreciate it so much. You all are the essence of democracy, and we have to use our democracy to improve our own lives as quickly as possible.
Definitely. So this 14-year-old advocate is demanding space for youth involvement when we are having conversations centered around policy. I would like to introduce you to Alisa Alvado Martinez.
Switch, yeah.
Good afternoon, Andrew Yang. My name is Elisa Martinez Alvarado, and I am a 14-year-old activist. I'm here to speak on youth and democracy and why it is important to me, because I want more youth to know that we are today's leaders and tomorrow's voters. I am not waiting to turn 18 to be a part of the change I want to see in my community. The time is now. My future is at stake. We are standing up for immigrant rights, fighting against climate change, pushing for gun reform, working to put an end to crippling student debt, and getting universal health care for our families. We are leading change. We are organizing our friends, classmates, and families to demand the future we deserve. I want to use my voice to advocate for my community, Latinx and immigrants. Since announcing his candidacy, Trump launched an anti-immigration campaign, causing attacks on Black and brown communities. His administration violates human rights by denying asylum seekers entry into the country. Instead, they're putting people in cages and separating families, causing more trauma in their lives. One of my friends is a DACA recipient. The day that DACA ended, I saw her break down. She told me she felt hopeless. I witnessed how teachers use derogatory language towards DACA recipients, and I was called a dirty Mexican for speaking Spanish to my grandma. This should not be the norm, and this is not the country I want to grow up in. Today, Today, I am here to use my voice for those families that have been torn apart. There was a recent report by ACLU that states that there are more than 1,500 families that were also separated by Trump's inhumane zero-tolerance policy. This brings the total of families torn apart to 5,500 at the very least. Mr. Yang, as president, will you launch an investigation to hold this administration accountable for what they have done to these families and ensure every single one of them is reunited?
Yes, I will. I'm the son of immigrants myself, and I'm also a parent. And seeing families get torn apart, it hurts me, as it should hurt every American, no matter what our background is. So there are a couple of big themes in your question and statement, and I'm going to address the first one because I feel very, very strongly about it, and then the second one, which I also feel very strongly about. So the first one is young people need to have a greater say in what happens in our society. And I am the only presidential candidate in the field that has said we should lower the voting age to 16 immediately. And I'm a very data-driven person. There are many excellent reasons to lower the voting age to 16. Number one, the younger you are the first time you vote, the more likely you are to vote throughout your life. Number two, it would turn every high school into a hotbed of political activity. Number three, you're going to be on this planet longer. I mean, it's sort of common sense, but like honestly, you're going to be here longer. You should have a say. And if you're 16, you pay taxes if you work, so you should be able to vote. The only counter argument I've heard is that 16-year-olds don't know what's happening around them, and I think that's nonsense. 16-year-olds know plenty of what's going on around them. In some ways, they're more on top of it than a lot of voting age adults. The other thing is it's not like we're springing a pop quiz on you when you show up to the ballots. Like there are a lot of they're actually called low information voters. You know what I mean? It's not like people who are above 18 are all freaking like political investigators. So number one, we have to give young people an actual say. And can you imagine what this country would look like if 16-year-olds could vote? It would be a better country, and I'm determined to make that possible. To the second, which is that Donald Trump has inflamed xenophobic and racist sentiments around the country, it's heartbreaking. And the fact that you've experienced that personally is also heartbreaking. I believe that I can reverse that in part because of my own story, my own identity. My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and I'm running for president. And that, to me, is the American story that we have to let people know about, that immigrants make this country stronger, more dynamic, both culturally, economically, societally. This is the American story. And I just want you all to imagine, after I'm president, thanks to you all in 2021, the rest of the world right now is looking at us being like, what the heck is going on with the United States of America with President Trump? And then after I'm president, they'll be like, wow, America turned that around in an awful hurry.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so this next individual is an environmental justice advocate on the human side of climate change. I'd like to introduce you to Adam Thompson.
Hello, Mr. Yang. My name is Adam Thompson. I've grown up across the street from the Boise River and spent most of my formative years going on walks with my siblings and my parents on the path along the river. And because of where I've grown up, I've adopted a deep love for nature. Today, as a result of that love, I'm an environmental studies student at Boise State University. I've researched the realities of climate change and the fact that we are rapidly moving towards the sixth mass extinction. I cite the IPCC report released back in 2018 stating that the world only had 12 years back then to reduce the total carbon emissions to get the planet cool enough before climate change becomes irreversible.
All true.
If we don't immediately act on this climate crisis, there's no future for any of us. The Green New Deal seeks to achieve zero greenhouse gas emissions, clean air and water, advance racial justice, and create millions of green jobs by 2030. Bottom line, the Green New Deal lines up with the timing demanded by science and justice. I really like your motto, make America think harder. And I want to think harder with you. I was lucky enough to grow up in a place with clean air and water, only walking distance away from a beautiful natural landscape. But this is not the case for most people. Climate impacts and environmental racism are already disproportionately impacting people of color and poor folks in this country and around the world. Climate change affects all of us, but it doesn't affect all of us equally. Investment in protecting and preparing vulnerable communities needs to be at the center of any real climate action plan. So, Mr. Yang, if you were elected president, how specifically will you commit resources for people of color and working class folks to not just survive this climate crisis, but have a real stake in the future of the clean energy economy?
Thank you. What was your name again?
Adam.
Adam. Thank you, Adam. Everything you just said is 100% true. I think most people here know this. When there's a natural disaster, who suffers the most? Poor people, people of color, and that's true throughout, pretty much independent of the type of disaster we're talking about. So my flagship proposal, the Freedom Dividend, which was championed by Martin Luther King in the 1960s, is to have every American adult receive $1,000 a month, free and clear. This would have higher impact on communities of color and poorer communities that right now don't have the resources to protect themselves. Like a flood comes, you don't have a car to get into to drive away to higher ground. If everyone had an additional $12,000 a year, then everyone would be able to at least have some basics. But that's just the beginning of it. My plan, it's literally called Move People to Higher Ground, is phase 4. We should be investing tens, hundreds of billions of dollars in protecting our communities and making them more resilient to the ravages of climate change. Because it's real. July was the warmest month in human history. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. We need to make dramatic moves, and we need to make them right now.
Thank you so much. All right, so this next advocate, she fights for immigrants and asylum-seeking communities, Samaya Ofene.
Hello, Andrew Yang. My name is Samuel Fennett. I'm 17. I'm a senior in IB at Valley High School. I come from a family of Somali refugees, and I'm first generation here in the United States. I actually grew up here in East Las Vegas, so welcome to my home. Okay. However, like many first generation children from refugee families, my mom still had to file paperwork for me, and I still had to apply for asylum here in the U.S. despite being born here. Okay. That's not right. Yeah. So,
She looks American to me. What do you all think?
Going through the asylum process and helping other members of my community go through the asylum process as well, I've watched adults that I look up to and look forward to for security break down to anxiety attacks, suffer from PTSD and depression, and eventually succumb to some of them myself. I also watched some of the children that I grew up with and were raised with have to move back to their home countries that they knew nothing about because they were at high risk of gang violence, and it was the closest immediate source of protection that they could find. Now, families from Somalia and many other war-torn and political and unstable countries are unable to apply for asylum here in the United States because of the travel ban, despite the huge role the U.S. plays in the political turmoil in those countries. Yemen, another country that my family calls home, is a perfect example of this. Today, I'm here to use my privilege and speak up and fight for the people who cannot speak up and fight for themselves. Earlier on in your presidency, you said that you will repeal the travel ban. But what efforts will you make to ensure that families are reunited, that the families who were waiting for years, some even decades, for entry into the United States, who were denied last minute because of the travel ban, receive justice and are finally let in, and to give the desperate and help these families that desperately need assistance, not just physical and home assistance, but the mental assistance they need as well throughout the asylum-seeking and resettlement process.
Thank you for sharing that story. The travel ban is so infuriating and disgusting because it has nothing to do with making us safer. It's just about inflaming hostility towards certain groups of people. And I would reverse it day one. But I agree with you that you can't stop there. You have to try and undo the damage that has been done. So I would commit to helping reunify families that have been separated because some people weren't able to gain asylum through our processes. And the truth of it is that we have an almost irresponsible approach to asylum right now. We have a policy on the book saying, hey, you can apply for asylum if you're fleeing persecution. But then we literally have over a year backlog. And when people are gummed up in a system that in some cases ends up putting them into criminally inhumane environments. And so if you have an asylum policy, then you need to actually have the resource in place to have asylum hearings and make determinations in a reasonable time frame, and you don't have families trapped in limbo, separated from each other for years on end. I would commit to actually having our policies live up to our values in terms of how we implement them. And the mental health crisis you're describing, unfortunately, it's not unique to refugee families. We have a mental health crisis in this country across the board. Suicides and drug overdoses are now at record levels in this country. It's gotten so bad that our life expectancy has declined for 3 years in a row because of deaths of despair. So as president, I would destigmatize mental health issues across the board and invest in a mental health infrastructure to make us all stronger, particularly young people and those in marginalized communities.
Thank you. Yes. So our next speaker is a UNLV alum, Go Rebels, and Black Lives Matter advocate, Jamila Lewis.
We have a lot of friends out there.
I'm just making sure the mic works. Hi, Mr. Yang. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Jamila Lewis. If you don't know who I am, you will soon. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm an organizer with PLAN and UNLV's Black Lives Matter. So I like to identify as a community resource rather than an advocate. I like to be there for the people. Being born and raised here in Nevada, I've seen what progress looks like in our community, but I've also seen what loss looks like and how it feels. In 1996, I was born 6 days after my best friend, Lenasia Dupree. She was an amazing person. She was a great friend, a daughter, a sister, and she was a fighter. She was everything I aspired to be. But in 2010, about 10 years ago, she lost her life. It was a week after 4th of July. That'd be the last time I spoke with her and had communication with her. She went to a teen club in Sacramento, was supposed to be having a great time, getting turned, living her best life, but that's not how the night ended. While clubbing and having fun on what would be her last day and the last time we spoke, there was a scuffle outside between two rivals. What happened outside would change the lives of people in Nevada, but also in California. Within moments of when people assumed the chaos was over, shots were fired and 2 people were shot. One of them was my best friend, Lenasia. It was about 9 o'clock on July 11th when I got the call that she'd been shot. And it was about 11 p.m. when I was told that she had passed away. Excuse me. On July 11th, I lost my best friend, but the person who shot her also lost his life. He lost the access to talk to his family, his friends, and his daughter. And it was all because of the decision to shoot. With that being said, people, especially people of color, live through this kind of gun violence regularly. And you have acknowledged that you support universal background checks. But many of us here know that background checks are only a piece of the problem that have been brought to mainstream due to mass shootings. But what I want to know is, what do you think the root cause of gun violence is, that the kind that killed my best friend? And how would you go about working with legislators and communities to solve this as president?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Jamila. Thank you. Thank you very much. The most immediate cause of gun violence is guns. So we need to do all we can to get guns out of the hands of Americans who will do others harm. I'm for not just universal background checks, but red flag laws, a ban on sales of automatic weapons, and these weapons that can kill many Americans in short periods of time. I agree with you, though, Jamila, and this is so profound, the way you talked about how the shooter's life was ruined as well, that to me there's this whole chain of events that leads to gun violence. And we need to break the stranglehold of the NRA and have common sense gun laws that we can all agree with. But we also need to go deeper into our communities and figure out what the whole chain of events that led to violence is, because getting the gun and using it are the last two steps. So what are like the earlier steps? It's poverty in our communities. It's what's going on in our families. It's what's going on in our schools. It's a mental health crisis. It's an economy that people feel like does not have a path forward for many people, young men in particular. We have to be honest that 96% plus of the shooters we're talking about are boys and men. And right now our society does not have mechanisms in place. I'm the parent of two young boys, one of whom is autistic. And you can see very clearly that the wrong boy in the wrong school can lead to terrible results. And sometimes those results end up being self-destructive or even externally destructive. So we have to get the guns, yes, but we have to get into our families and our schools and our communities and start making our people more whole and strong, young boys in particular, because they're the ones who are slipping through the cracks and are most likely to use guns. I will also say that almost 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. So this is not necessarily just, like you said, like the shooter's life gets ruined like most often of all because they make irreversible, tragic decisions that there's no coming back from.
Thank you. So this next change agent is 17-year-old advocate Abigail Herrera.
Good evening, Mr. Yang. My name is Abigail Herrera. I'm a senior at Southeast Korean Technical Academy. I am 17 years old, and I will be a first-time voter this upcoming presidential election year 2020.
Do you know who you're voting for yet?
So
Pressure's on now.
I am an intern at Chispa, Nevada, a branch of League of Conservation Voters. Chispa, Nevada's goal is to make sure that communities of color and low-income families have a strong voice in the decisions and policies impacting our communities and the environment that we all depend on. We're calling on our future president to take strong and immediate action to address the climate crisis, including transitioning to 100% clean and renewable energy. The people's health and safety should be a priority to our president. My question to you is, given that Nevada doesn't even generate nuclear energy and Nevadans overwhelmingly support clean and renewable energy, why do you support dumping nuclear energy or nuclear waste at the Yucca Mountains only 100 miles from here, exposing our communities to nuclear waste?
I couldn't agree more that this should not be a Nevada problem. This is a United States problem. That to the extent our country right now has nuclear power plants that are producing waste, we need to have a national solution that doesn't put the burden on any one community. I couldn't agree with you more that we're in the midst of this climate crisis. We need to move towards renewable source of energy as quickly as possible. And to the extent that solar and wind can support our society in the right time frame, then that is what we should invest in. So certainly, like the fact you framed it as like I'm somehow for like nuclear waste. Like no one is for dumping nuclear waste anywhere. It's like the plan has to be to try and have what's a national responsibility, find a national solution, and not say this is a Nevada problem or Las Vegas problem or Yucca Mountain problem.
All right, thank you. So our final question, and our speaker is going to be in regards to housing. We actually have a couple of red flags up. All right. So the people from Nevada want to get more into details because it is a Nevada problem, and before it gets here, it's going to hit a lot of other communities. So what other plans do you have to make us feel secure if you become our president?
Right now in this country, everything revolves around the almighty dollar. And so when you look up and you say there are communities of color that feel like they don't have a voice, a lot of it is because our market right now is dominated by big companies that pull the strings on everything. And so this includes something like the nuclear, like the placement of nuclear waste, where there were 3 sites that were being considered. One in Nevada, one in Texas, and then one in New Mexico, I believe. Now, the question is, how is the decision made for it to wind up in Nevada? And then who are the Nevada stakeholders who signed off on that? So that to me is the question. There are some people, and this is an issue that, obviously has existed for years. The question is, how do we actually find a solution that will work for you all and for the fact that there's this waste that exists that's not originated here, but is originated around the country? I don't have like an honest answer, because it's like, I don't have like a terrific answer, because to me, this is a problem that we as a country have to come together and face. The fact that you're bearing the brunt of it is, I agree, not appropriate.
So if we were willing to connect you with more Nevadans and people who are going to be impacted by this afterwards, would you be willing to sit down and have a conversation in the future?
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right, so another crisis that we have in our valley is affordable housing, which is driving our homelessness rate, right? So this next advocate we have speaking is Sandra, and she's going to be translated by Tabitha.
Buenas tardes, señor Jan. Mi nombre es Sandra Obando y yo vengo de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, California. He sido líder.
Good afternoon, Mr. Yang. My name is Sandra Obando, and I come from Los Angeles.
He sido líder en la ciudad de Los Ángeles por 40 años. En la vivienda pública, defiendo los derechos de los residentes.
I've been a community leader and advocate for 40 years in public housing, defending the rights of public housing tenants.
Estamos luchando por los derechos de los residentes en la vivienda pública. Estamos luchando por una garantía nacional en la vivienda.
So we're fighting for the rights of public housing residents, and we are fighting for a national homes guarantee.
Actualmente estoy en la organización como representante ahorita de Ground Game.
I'm here today on behalf of Ground Game LA.
Le voy a pasar el...
Mi nombre es Ana. Después de escuchar la historia de la señora Obanda, señor Yang, ¿qué garantía nos ofrece usted de conservar nuestra vivienda pública al darnos voucher de sección 8?
So this is Anna. After hearing Sandra speak, Mr. Yang, what guarantee can you give us that we will be able to keep our public housing while with your plan to use Section 8 vouchers?
Is that the question?
Nosotros tenemos la experiencia que este programa no funciona y no funcionará. No es una solución definitiva. Ya no queremos más familias viviendo en las calles con sus niños.
In our experience, this is not a program that has worked, and it is not a program that will work, and therefore it is not an effective solution. We don't want more families on the street with their kids.
There are three things that are making us miserable in America right now: housing, education, and healthcare, where they just all keep getting more and more expensive, even though our wages stay essentially the same. And I agree with you that existing responses to public housing in terms of the vouchers, you know that there's like a multi-year-long wait list oftentimes, that the programs aren't responsive to changes in circumstance, that you end up with families on the street. My flagship proposal is to put $1,000 a month into the hands of every single American, which is going to be a game changer on the housing level for everybody. Now, it also helps address the homelessness crisis in this country right now, where when you find a homeless person, you know what the nonprofit does or the agency does, the first thing? What they do is they try and figure out whether there are any government programs that this person actually can receive revenue from. So if everyone's entitled to $1,000 a month, then all of a sudden, we all have the power to make sure that there's housing that actually provides for our needs in the community in a way that's not top down, but it's bottom up. Because if you have two adults in a household that's $24,000 a year, all of a sudden your ability to find housing for your family will get much, much higher. I'm for affordable housing solutions from the top down and the bottom up, but I don't think top down solutions work individually.
The question's really about the guarantee to keep public housing, allow people to continue living in public housing. And getting $1,000 a month isn't guaranteeing someone that they're going to be able to stay in public housing. Right now, there's a huge issue between the private sector and the public sector in housing, and a huge part as to why Section 8 vouchers don't work is because it pushes people into the private sector of housing.
I apologize for misunderstanding the question. If you're in public housing, you should know that that home is yours and that nothing is going to happen to you. 100%. I agree with that. 100%. And to the extent that that's happening to people, it's unconscionable. Your home is yours. You're in public housing. Just because some rich developer thinks they can make more money does not mean that you should lose your home.
So that's a really great question. So even if we were to have a $1,000 voucher, what happens when rent goes up?
Well, first, it's not a $1,000 voucher. It's $1,000 in cash. And you can do whatever you'd like with that cash. And to the extent, if your landlord decides to stick it to you, then two things. Number one, you can always say, look, maybe I can find a landlord that's not going to try and gouge me. But number two, if all of the landlords try and gouge you, then 3 or 4 of you get together and you say, you know what, 4 of us, that's $4,000 a month. That's enough for us to get a fixer-upper and start being much more flexible in the way that you can actually not get exploited by the landlords. Because right now, again, the landlords do have way too much power, and the way to balance it out is just to put buying power into our hands.
All right, thank you. And also in our state, it's important to be mindful that even if we all came together with our $4,000, multiple families living in one home is still a form of homelessness because we all don't have access to rooms. But I want to say thank you to all of our youth and everybody that stood here today and shared their amazing stories. And thank you so much, Andrew Yang. We are very thankful that you are here with us today. We would like to hear closing remarks because we do know that you say that you're not a politician. And what Nevadans need is not another non-politician. We need an advocate in office. So we would like to know, what are your closing remarks for a room full of organizers?
Oh, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it so much. Before this, I ran a nonprofit that I ran for 7 years. And I was talking to the executive director of a nonprofit backstage where I know what executive directors do. I know what advocates do. If you run a nonprofit, you know that you have to hustle with a smile on your face all the time. And then anytime someone does something good for you, you have to take it to heart and hold it very, very deeply. Because for everyone who does something to help your organization, there'll be 10 people that just ignore you or pretend to help you or say they're going to do something and don't do it. I have been there. I understand. The fact is, it's harder and harder to advocate for the causes we care about because the things we care most deeply about, community, volunteerism, parenting, journalism, the arts, culture, women, marginalized communities, are all getting zeroed out in America right now. They are. And Nevada is going to be ground zero for it because Nevada has the highest proportion of jobs that are subject to automation and technology in the entire country. Your industries are retail, hospitality, gaming, call centers, transportation, warehousing and fulfillment. All of this is going to get blasted away by robots in the next 10 to 20 years. You are number one in the country. You have to make a case for an economy that works for us as quickly as possible. If you fail in this, then the rest of the country will follow suit in a way that's going to make what happens here an emblem for what happens in the future, but not in the way you want, in a negative way. And we have to keep that from happening. That's why I'm running for president, and I hope you will help me rewrite the rules of this economy to work for you, to work for us, to work for the parents, the children, the marginalized people of this country. That is why I'm running for president.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. All right, let's give a round of applause to our amazing speakers and our community members. So up next, I would like to invite Leslie Ann Turner and Champagne Clark to the stage.
Trips that you plan for the next whole week. Been too long from so cheap and your flex OD and sex OD. You got it, girl, you got it. Hey. You got it, girl, you got it. Yeah. Pretty little thing, you got a bag and now you wildin'. You just took it off the line, no mileage.
Everybody on their feet, please.
Looking violent. Talking while you come around and now they silent. Through the Cooper 17, nobody.
So we're super excited about this presidential election. We're excited about this forum. We're glad that y'all were here.
You got it, girl, you got it. You got it, girl, you got it.
This is family on the stage right now.
Baby girl, you got it, girl, you got it, girl. You got it, girl, you got it, girl. I don't wanna play no games, play no games. Go around, get your mind that thing. Same damn thing, that's okay.
Okay, y'all. So, first of all, my name's Leslie Turner, for those that don't know me. I'm an organizer here with Plan and Plan Action and the Mass Liberation Project. And what I represent is Black liberation. What I represent is Black power. If you don't know what Black power is, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's Black people having the agency, having the creativity, having the resiliency to define our own path and create our own solutions for our own communities. All these people on stage right now are family, and we just want to lead y'all in a closing chant. Again, I want to say that we're all in this together, but we up here on the stage, we're fighting for Black liberation. We ask you to join us in that fight. And we thank y'all for being here today. So this chant, do you want to say something, Champagne? Okay, Champagne.
Everybody, Champagne. So, love y'all back. So what we're going to do is a chant. And this side of the room, when we're going to say, what side are you, all my people? What side are we? And this side going to say, we on the freedom side. So, okay, y'all ready? Yeah. Let's do it. What side are you, all my people? What side are you on? We on the freedom side. What side are you, all my people? What side are you on? We on the freedom side. What side are you, all my people? What side are you on? We on the freedom side. Y'all act like y'all don't want to be free over here. I don't hear y'all. We on the freedom side. Do y'all want to be free? Or y'all want to keep being oppressed? I need to hear that you are on the freedom side. What side we on? We on the freedom side. Do y'all want to be free or no?
We on the freedom side.
That part. We on the freedom side.
Woo!
Hello.
Right now, we also stand in solidarity with the people on the ground in Haiti who are rising up. And regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, you always align yourself with the people on the ground closest to the problem, because those closest to the problem are what? And big up Glenn Martin from Just Leadership, who coined that term. Those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from power, and we intend to change that. So this second chant that we're gonna do is, Champagne is gonna lead us in, and then we're gonna close it out with that.
Okay, so everyone just repeat after me, please. I believe. I believe that we. I believe that we will. I believe that we will win.
Sorry, switch. Okay, I want to thank, first of all of the storytellers, everyone who spoke truth to power on the stage, everyone who talked about their personal experiences, their personal trauma for everyone else to resonate with. We want to thank you. We would also want to thank the candidates for coming out and speaking to the community. We want to thank Assemblyman Alex Asefa for being here with us. We want to thank our partners, People's Action, and our sponsors, Battleborn Progress, Culinary Union 226. We want to thank everybody in this building, thank everyone who came and showed up and showed out, and God bless and have a good night.
Yes! Thank you all! Mass liberation! Plan action! People's action!
Nothing I would not do. Before I let you go.
Drop it down low. Low to the ball. Get low to the ball. Stand up. Bunny hop, drop. Bunny hop, drop. Bunny hop, drop. Bunny hop, drop. Left to the left, to the left, to the left. Shuffle to the right.